5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Speaking Cinema, serious movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast. I am your host. With me are Matt Mad Dog Fondacaro.
That's me.
And DJ Jazzy Kevin Merritt.
Jazzy Jared.
I wish you hadn't done that, but there's nowhere but forward. What's up, guys? This week, it doesn't think, it doesn't feel, it doesn't give up, it follows. Released in 2014. And by the way, if you didn't understand, we're doing It Follows. It Follows.
It follows.
I watched this movie a couple of weeks ago. Kevin, you were there?
I was there.
And it's really stuck in my mind, and so I wanted to talk about it on the show. It was very easy to persuade Kevin to let us do this. Matt came kicking and screaming, but here we are. If you're not familiar with It Follows, it's a lo-fi monster movie, which is a very unique genre that I think we're going to... We'll
starting to gain some traction.
Lo-fi.
Here.
What does that mean? Lo-fi.
We'll get into it. We will get into it. But first, if you're not familiar, after a young girl gets involved in a sexual confrontation, she is followed by an unknown force. So vague. Written and directed by David Robert Mitchell. This is his second movie, a follow-up to The Myth of the American Sleepover, which is a very small release. This is also a small release. It Follows was not intended to be his second movie. It was an idea that he had, but because it's a low-budget horror movie, it was easier to finance, and he was able to get into production, get it off the ground, and now it's in theaters. The concept of this movie came to the director when he had recurring nightmares as a child. He was stalked by a predator that continually walked towards him. He said his dreams were a manifest of his anxiety, which occurred around the age his parents got divorced. Which I feel like is all very interesting in the context of after you've seen this movie. So to Matt, I believe this will make just a collection of arbitrary facts. But to me and Kevin, I think some shit's going on right here.
Tuned in right now.
Tuned in.
I will take these words and manifest them in a sentence or something.
Oh, thank you for that. So we're gonna keep this part short. This episode. I don't want to say too much about this movie. I think this movie needs the barest of information. You should just go see it. Speaking of that, as of this recording, this movie is in theaters with a limited release. If you live in a major city, you probably could get to it.
It has expanded recently because it did well in its limited release.
Right.
So it's in some bigger theaters.
I think it's like, 1,000 or 2,000 theaters?
It might be a little more, but it definitely got a way bigger release after doing exceptionally well in a smaller release.
So hit up Fandango. They are not a sponsor. Or however you find internets on the internet. However you find movies on the internet. There are no legal digital copies of this movie, so that's not an option.
Get that cam.
If you're interested in supporting
support independent cinema.
Yeah, and as such, there are no discs. So in cinemas, maybe by the time you read this, it'll be on Netflix. Is it streaming? I don't know, but that's
I'm not a scientist.
That's our situation.
Just find it and watch it.
Yep. So. Me and Kevin, Kevin, I'm going to speak for you right now.
Okay.
Me and you have seen this movie. I don't remember the context of how we heard about it. Do you remember?
I think we just read enough movie blogs, and
I do read a substantial number of horror blogs.
That's probably how you heard about it. But I saw...
Shout out Arrow Through the Head. Shout out
Can we
Fangoria.
say specific blog names on this podcast?
I don't give a fuck.
I read...
Just don't tell anyone where I work.
I read... I read Collider and Slash Film.
Slash Film, yes.
And the main guy at Collider he saw It Follows at one of the film festivals.
I believe it, and don't quote me on this, but I think it was like Fantastic Fest or one of those.
Yeah, it was one of those, yeah. It might have even been Toronto, but again,
could have been.
I'm not sure. But
I refuse to look this up.
He was all about it and hyped it a lot. And then I saw the poster that's done retro style, and I thought that was really
cool. The one with she's looking in her rearview mirror.
It's very
great poster,
very John Carpenter-esque poster.
And I would say it's a movie that lives up to that poster.
Oh yeah, it absolutely lives up to that.
And I feel like a lot of movies that I find myself interested in do not live up to the poster.
A great poster can do a lot for a movie. So, but yeah, I heard about it, and I was like, I'm checking this out when it comes to town, and it played at the Hollywood ArcLight, and that's where we went and saw it.
Mm-hmm. I was there. Matt, you probably heard about this movie when I told you we were doing it for the show.
I saw a trailer on YouTube, so it seems like it had some decent marketing behind it.
Yeah, Radius is putting it out.
So I did see a
A
trailer.
subsidiary of the Weinstein Company.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a trailer. I didn't really know too much about it, or
How did you receive that trailer?
I mean, it just seemed like a standard trailer. You know, it's billing it as like a horror movie,
Which it is.
and I think if I remember correctly, there was some, some pop out things that happened. Maybe I'm just imagining that. I don't know.
You are.
Okay, so maybe that didn't happen, but I mean, it didn't really stick with me. I didn't really think too much about it because, when you're on YouTube and you're not really interested in watching the trailer play between videos that you're watching. You're more or less trying to block that out. So it didn't.
So you're saying it was an ad on a...
It was an ad, yeah.
You were watching every Goro fatality in the history of Mortal Kombat, and it follows. You had to sit through 30 seconds of it before you could skip the ad.
Right. Key with Goro, uppercut when he does his little victory dance. But not to sidetrack here.
Also, Mortal Kombat gonna be the
Mortal Kombat
in the
Annihilation.
future. Yeah, Mortal Kombat. No. The original. We're not doing Annihilation.
No. Yes, please, no.
Even as a kid, I was like, that movie fucking was no good. But I loved Mortal Kombat. That was the first video game movie I ever saw that was of satisfaction.
I remember being so happy that it was PG-13 so I could go see it in theaters. And now that I look back on that, I should have not felt that way.
Do you think that movie doesn't hold up?
I haven't seen it in so long that I can't say. So
I think what we should do is get back on track.
Mortal Kombat will be another day.
Yeah, and I think Kevin, you touched about this in the hype. Every now and again we hear about a hyped horror movie with a limited distribution. I think recently we covered previously on this series we covered Starry Eyes. The Babadook is another one. What We Do in the Shadows. There's these horror movies that are small but people kind of champion. What do you guys think about that? Like, is that cool? Is that lame? Is that how you like your horror, small and kind of a limited release, or do you miss the fact that we don't get these kinds of movies through the studios?
it depends. I mean, if you can make a good horror movie and you got $60 million in your pocket and you make a great horror movie, I'm all for it. You know, it's
Van Helsing.
No, I don't care how you shoot it. I don't care how much money you had to make it. I don't care who's in it. Well, yeah, that's not true. But if the people in it are good and you have a good script, then it will stand the test of time and it will be a good horror movie. Like, it's not, I don't care if it was, they made this with like Kickstarter money and, they only shot it on iPhone and, it's this great little horror movie. But not, if the script isn't any good, then it's all washed to me. And it follows, why I like it so much is it has a great concept. It looks really well shot on a very small budget. I believe it was only...
This movie?
Yeah.
$2 million.
$2 million. I mean, it's shot extremely well. Like, the cinematography is very good. The camera work, the lighting is all very nice. Like, it doesn't look like a cheap production, even though it was. And, so yeah, if it's a good film, I'll gravitate towards it.
Right. I mean, I think it kind of bums me out when movies like this don't get a wide release. Like, I'm bummed out why a Sony or a Universal or a Fox or I guess not Disney, but fuck it. Why Disney or Paramount? Am I missing a studio? That's all.
Warner Brothers?
Warner Brothers, thank you. It bums me out when they don't. I mean, Warner Brothers did The Conjuring, and they're kind of getting back into the horror game. Universal has all the Blumhouse movies, but the rest of them don't really put out horror movies. And I feel like there's a lot of these movies that you could. This is a $2 million low budget horror movie, but it plays very well. I feel like anyone could have picked this up at a festival, purchased the rights, marketed it, and it could have been a really big movie. And as a horror fan, I mean, I kind of am sad that it doesn't happen. I don't know I don't know if there's a lack of interest or if that's not how.
It's a niche market.
I don't really think so.
Horror is kind of a hard sell for people because a lot of people get turned off by the idea of horror, and what's very popular now is the found footage, pop up and scare movies, and that's what the general public is kind of wanting. Like, they want that cheap scare. They don't want anything that's going to be too.
If you're playing along at home, our drinking game, I'm going to strongly disagree. So you may take a drink.
Something non-alcoholic because we don't condone drinking and driving. If you're at home,
that's
then
true.
it doesn't matter. But
Don't
don't be
if you're at work and listening to this, or if you're driving and listening to this, don't drink.
don't be a lush.
Drinking and sitting, do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, I think like in recent years, Warner Brothers put out The Conjuring, which is a ghost story. They put out Annabelle, which is like a sequel to The Conjuring, which is also like a ghost story, demon possession kind of a thing. The Blumhouse movies some of them are found footage, but that's kind of come and gone. It's more like The Purge, these high concept, low budget, one location movies. Lazarus Effect.
It's building stuff on a gimmick, which is, and I think that's what people are going for. I think when you have a movie that has any sort of deeper psychological message or something that's going to be very like upsetting and disturbing, like you watch a movie like The Exorcist, like there's something. It's not just the horror of the possession. It's like there's deep-rooted fear, something like Alien. But I think with these movies that are coming out now, they're very singular note, and that's what people are going for. And no one really is taking a risk on movies that are going to be any denser, any more have anything more to say than just something superficial. So I think it's what.
And It Follows doesn't have an easy hook to market. It's a lot of the big horror movies are based on a true story or true accounts, or it's found footage,
or it's a rehash of
or it's a remake,
Yeah.
or it's It Follows doesn't have really
that's a
easy
good point.
hook that
That's
that the big studios like.
It's hard to describe, and the more you describe it, I think actually the more it's a movie that works best on the you should just see this. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
describing it kind of makes it hard. You know what I mean?
If you read too much on paper, it actually sounds like a dumb concept. If on paper it looks weird, but the way they execute it and the way it's done is very compelling.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's revisit the term lo-fi horror, which I think Matt
I never heard that term
threw you
before.
for a loop. This is how I define lo-fi horror, and if anyone wants to disagree with me, that's totally fine. It's kind of like when I was writing this up, I just something that kind of popped in my mind, and I think I was reading some stuff that people wrote on it, and they mentioned this phrase. What lo-fi horror means to me is a horror movie that's done without a lot of effects and without a lot of usually that's a result of them not having a lot of money, but a movie that's done without a lot of effects. So an example of that would be something like The Shining.
So like more psychological horror, where it's more in the mind, and it's more a manifestation of the mind. Is that what you're going for?
Not really. It's something like The Shining, or the two movies that embody this to me most are The Shining and The Changeling. And then there was with that one. I should have written this down, but there's a ghost movie where it's like the walls budge and the room shakes.
The Haunting, right?
Yeah, The Haunting from the 60s.
Yeah, the old Haunting.
Yeah, the old Haunting. Like that to me is like lo-fi horror, where like if you described it, it's like nothing is happening, right? Like it's not like a bunch of blood comes out of the wall. It's not like it's just like the room shook.
Yeah.
And it was a scary noise. And in The Shining, like nothing is happening. It's just the way that they're telling the story, it's just creepy as fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what a scary scene in The Shining is Danny plays with toys on the ground, a ball rolls up, he picks up the ball and follows it to room 237, he does not go inside. On paper, that's not scary at all. When you watch that movie, that scene is just like...
When all the elements come together, the
Right.
cinematography, the sound design, the performance.
Perhaps you could call that psychological horror. I feel like psychological horror is a term that people... And I'm not saying you're doing this.
Or is
I'm
it
not
like
saying
cerebral horror?
I don't know. People use the word psychological horror or cerebral horror when they want to be an elitist in horror and say like this horror is better than that horror, which I feel like is lame. It's like when people call like comic book. This isn't a comic book; it's a graphic novel. You know what I mean? It's like it's all the same. It's a graphic novel, but it's a comic book. You know what I mean? It's not. These are not different things.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen The Vanishing, the Dutch movie?
I've heard of it. That would be an example.
Okay, of lo-fi.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. I understand what I understand what you're putting down.
This is usually associated with like ghost stories or serial killers. Not really slashers. Slashers are more blood and guts. There's a lot of that. in
Those
slashers.
tend to need a little bigger budget to do the gore effect.
Not a huge budget, but the budget is going towards
Not
horror
huge.
effects. Yeah.
Exactly.
What do you guys think about lo-fi horror? I feel like a lot of people maybe don't call it that term, but that's what they like in horror. They don't like the blood and the guts. They like the lo-fi, the horror of the mind.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's an interesting way to present a horror movie instead of just having a cop-out of people just getting hacked to bits and no real substance of why this is happening other than just like, oh, I just ate demonic.
Matt, it's happening because the government experimented in those mountains and the indigenous people, blah, 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 hills have eyes. It happened because the government, blah, 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 lake, blah, 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 Prada.
I was gonna say Lake Placid.
It could have been Lake Placid. I think Lake Placid, the plot of Lake Placid is just the crocodile was there.
Yeah, he's
There's
always
no
been.
government, there's no conspiracy, it's just like...
Just a big fucking crocodile.
Big fucking crocodile. That's where it
fine.
lives.
True.
It's cool.
True.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, but I do like lo-fi horror because it's an interesting take on a horror genre.
Sure.
It can be great. It can also be crushingly boring if it's done poorly.
Okay, and I'm glad you said
Example
that.
of that.
Questionably boring?
Boring.
People say like House of the Devil is boring and
I
The
like that
Innkeepers
one.
is...
I like
I
that.
love those movies. Some people say that.
Which I haven't seen those, but yeah, that was a
Also,
criticism.
shout
I had
out
of
to...
those.
who directed those?
Was it Neil something or
No, fuck.
Neil Simon.
Keep talking. It was definitely not Neil Simon.
It was Paul Simon actually.
Oh, okay, Paul Simon. Him and Garfunkel, last hurrah.
So if you could hear that, it's me typing.
Frantically.
House of the Devil.
Yeah, I like the House of the Devil. It was interesting.
Ty West. Shout out Ty West. Good shit.
Spelled T-I. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Not like Ty Cobb,
like the rapper.
but
Yep.
Ty. Like T West.
Trying to think of a movie that was crushingly boring, psychological horror. Give me a minute. I'll come up
Ninth
with it.
Gate or something? No, that had
That's
more.
the dumbest title. Knife Gate.
What?
That sounds like a 70s political
by
thriller.
the way, I am a sucker. And Kev, think about this while I say we'll go on my tirade. I am a sucker for like a good title. Like I'm not a huge fan of like Gallo movies.
Title's great.
Which, if you're not familiar with Gallo movies, they're 70s pre-slasher movies that often featured a killer with like black gloved hands, and it was a mystery, and there's lots of people
Like Deep Red.
like Deep Red,
Oh.
but like Three Flies on Gray Velvet.
It's a mouthful of a title.
I love those titles
Just
so much.
Is that like just like the result of a poorly translated title?
I think it's just like I think it was just of the time. It was like who would it was like something like who would kill a duckling? Like I don't know, man. I just love those titles.
Back when they didn't give a fuck about titles, they just did it.
Kev, you find anything or
I do not have a specific example, but I think, which might invalidate my point, but I don't care. I think they can be, they if not done well, then there's not a whole lot on the screen to latch onto. And maybe we'll go back and do this again, so that I can find a specific example.
Nope.
Never.
I get what you're
On
saying.
tape forever.
I mean, I get what you're saying. There's an element, and this is a question that's coming up later, but I don't give a fuck. There's an element of being a horror fan. It's like people say, okay, so like you'll see. I remember me and Matt when we were in high school, we used to watch like these Bravo's top scariest movies of all time or scariest moments, and people would always put over the idea that not seeing it is better than seeing it. Right, that like it's not if you see the monster, if you see blood and guts, that dates you. But if you don't, you don't. But that's not. And I remember reading an interview with John Carpenter later, who he's like, "No, dude, I'm a horror fan. Like, if I came to a monster movie, I want to see that fucking monster. You know what I mean? If I came to see a girl get chopped up into bits, as morbid as that is, I want to see it. You know what I mean? And I think it kind of ebbs and flows. And I don't think you could say it's all about blood and guts and it's all about this. It's kind of like, what does this story want to tell you? The Changeling is a horribly scary movie, super interesting, great. And it's not very violent. It's a lot of mystery. It's a lot of intrigue. There's a shot on a piano, then someone hits all the keys at the same time. You know what I mean? And that story works great. And I would argue that, and this might be controversial, but Hostel, Part 1 and Part 2 are really good movies, and they do show people getting sawed up and cut up and bled and whatever. And something like, all these flat plaque movies like The Devil's Rejects and High Tension. Like, I feel like those movies that do show you the fucking guy getting brained, you know what I mean? Like, those are good. And so, I don't know. I feel like it's a easy out for people who don't like horror to say, don't show it ever. I think your story determines whether you show it or don't.
That to me is very like the snotty critics way of disavowing a horror movie.
Right.
It's the horror movies like The Haunting really appeal to the critics and the people who don't think something like Friday the 13th is any good or Nightmare on Elm Street.
Which, by the way, I really recently revisited the first 3 Friday the 13th movies. 1 and 2, solid.
Yep.
3, no good.
3 beyond just oof.
Right. Also, just to come back here with some sweet Gallo titles: Blood and Black Lace, Naked. ... You Die. The House That Screamed. Death Knocks Twice. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
Evocative.
$5 for an August Moon.
Great titles.
Oh, here's my favorite. A Lizard in a Woman's Skin.
That's creepy.
The Strange Vice of Miss Ward H.
Just to
The Case of the Scorpion's Tail.
let me get a word here, and back to what you're saying about the critics.
Twitch of the Death Nerve. Just as you speak, I'm going to insert these.
All right. So I think that what happened when you have the critics who don't go for the Splatterfest and they like the, seeing less is better. I think it's because you had such a saturation of really bad exploitation, coming up horror movies. I think that they were
The Devil Has 7 Faces.
that they didn't. They were tired of seeing that, and so when they saw something that you didn't see, like I guess in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's like things you don't see, but it's haunting as fuck,
Yeah.
creepy and like scary, and I think that's what they really wanted. They liked that better because it wasn't.
I agree with that. Yeah.
But I mean, like but for your purposes, when you actually get to see like the disemboweling of something or like horrendously grisly deaths, and that it appeals to like the horror.
The gore found it. Gore.
And it's a really polarizing genre because either people love it or people are just like, I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole because it's too much.
In the Pursuit of Pleasure, a.k.a. Manic Mansion, a.k.a. Leather and Whips, a.k.a. Hotbed of Sex. Also, that title that I mentioned earlier is Don't Torture a Duckling, not Who Killed a Duckling, or Who Would Kill a Duckling.
It's even worse.
Which, Don't Torture a Duckling, also known as The Long Night of Exorcism. Also, I'm going to get back to what you're saying, Matt, and I apologize for being so incredibly rude. But your vice is a locked room and only I have the key.
Wow.
I just reading that, I want to click this link. I want to turn off this microphone. I want to watch this movie. Yeah, I think so. I think everyone has a different taste in horror, and as someone who's a horror fan, I really do celebrate that. And when we get to our rapid fire, you see what I'm talking about, motherfuckers. But I really do celebrate that, and I think this movie is not, spoiler alert, is not a blood and guts movie. It's much more lo-fi, and I think it works perfectly for the tone and the themes and what it's trying to get across, right? It picks and chooses its moments of violence very smartly, and I think it really works in that sense. And it doesn't need a saw to the face, and it doesn't need a Texas Chainsaw, and it doesn't need, any kind of thing like that. It is what it is. And I think to say everything is one way or everything is the other way, that's fine if that's how you feel, right? If you're just like a guy who likes the psychological horror, that's fine. But don't be such a negative person in terms of not liking the other stuff, because whatever, it's all good,
Although there is one scene of gore in It Follows, but you don't see the process of the gore, you see the aftermath of it.
True.
And it's very, very strong, visual, very evocative.
Indeed. Last Gallo movie, French Sex Murders. Come on.
That sounds like a fun theme party.
French Sex. Oh no. This is the best one. All the Colors of the Dark. Ooh. Fuck. Nice. Also, AKA Day of the Maniac. Meh. AKA They're Coming to Get You. Those are inferior titles to All the Colors of the Dark.
Yeah.
Very dark.
Okay, love it. Don't really like Gallo movies, but that's
some great titles.
Poorly dubbed, over the top, wacky shit with the Goblin soundtrack. Like weird Italian prog rock.
Oh, dude, I don't like Suspiria, and maybe one day we'll revisit Suspiria.
I need to revisit.
I'm gonna type that down, but it's I don't like Suspiria, but that soundtrack is great. Like the witch.
Oh god.
I really do want. I want to watch Suspiria with someone who loves it, because I just feel like I just don't understand. Like, have you ever seen Pieces?
No.
Pieces is a Gallo movie that came out, whatever, in the 70s. And it's about, killings on a college campus. And there's this weird, there's a bizarre lots of bizarre themes and like they're trying to catch a killer and they think it's this. They turn this guy around and he karate chops this dude and kicks his ass with karate. But he's like, oh no, this is my karate instructor. I just scared him. And he's like, and then he bows and like does a backflip. It's just like the fucking craziest movie. And I saw it and I did not like it. But then I listened to Killer POV. Shout out Killer POV. They were like, you have to watch that movie with an audience. It's not meant to be viewed alone, right? You have to watch it with like a rowdy audience. It's like it's like The Room, and not in terms of people that don't like it, but it's like The Room in that people are yelling at the screen, and that's how you have to see it. So maybe I just don't understand that.
Kind of like Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Indeed,
like, that movie certainly only works with an audience.
Indeed.
I would disagree. I think the movie is great without an audience.
Oh,
But it is a lot of fun to go with the
works,
crowd.
Let me it works best with an
Right.
audience.
If you can-
it's at its finest when you're
Yes.
with people who are just going off the wall crazy.
if you can hear this typing, Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Somewhere in the annals of the internet is a picture of me in drag at a Rocky
In
Horror
drag.
Picture
Wait, stop this fucking show. What do you? Where and when? We're gonna keep this very simple. Where and when?
This was in, I want to say 2006, 2007, approximately, in Spokane, back home. The Garland Theater would do midnight movies in the summer. They were like $1.
And are you wearing fishnets and?
It's not too over the top. It's a very flowery blouse. Very heavy eye makeup, very heavy lipstick. And I don't remember what pants I was wearing, but very flowery
No pants.
blouse. I had pants on.
They do play the Rocky Horror Picture Show here, and I've been looking for an excuse to go
The Newark Theater every Saturday.
every Saturday in LA.
In LA on Pico.
Our new podcast, Talking LA Talk.
Oh my God, Cantors.
I don't want
but
to
yes.
Cantors.
Yeah, to wrap that up,
You know what
somewhere
I'm
on
gonna
the
say?
internet-
It's a little bit overrated.
I mean, so
Say-
a lot of those eateries in LA, everyone's like, oh, this is the greatest thing because it's an institution. It gets grandfathered into being good, but it's like, fuck, if you get a good pastrami sandwich and a
fucking-
matzo ball soup, I don't care.
It's the Apple Pan. Fuck that place. Anyways, so yeah, to wrap
Shut
it up,
up.
somewhere on the internet, I'm not sure where, there is a picture of me in drag at a Rocky Horror Picture Show screening.
That's great. Let's wrap this up. Or, get back on track anyways. I assume that none of us have heard of David Robert Mitchell.
I have not.
Not till this movie came out.
Alright.
I've heard the title of his first movie, Myth of the American Sleepover, but did not see it, did not know who he was.
Also, 5 episodes in, I feel like every time I ask this question, it never hurts the movie, and we gotta find one that when it does. You know what I mean?
Really cuts deep.
Knowing,
M. Night Shyamalan.
but
Our new podcast, Talking Shyamalan.
The next Spielberg, according to Time Magazine, circa
well, yeah, I remember that.
2003.
Yeah, I remember that article. It was like, why? Like, he's not a producer. He's not like an entity who has like a really.
You know what? Let's save this for the M. Night
Alright,
Shyamalan.
I don't want to talk about M. Night Shyamalan. Fuck that guy.
Okay. So we kind of covered, I had some questions here, covered Monster Lurking in Dark in the Shadows. I feel like we extensively covered that. We also extensively covered what's more satisfying, seeing it or it being implied, which is kind of the same question. Like, the horror movies are often about teenagers. I think there's notable exceptions to this, like The Thing, which is about adults, affects adults.
Yeah.
It's usually about teenagers because that's the audience they want to get, and also I think culturally it's an interesting person to kill. Teenagers, people who have their whole future in front of them. Does anyone want to add anything to that, or?
I would say that it is such a cliche of the horror genre to do the killing teenagers based on solely on from a morality perspective is because and it's so overdone that it's like we understand what you're trying to convey with this message. It's like, oh, teenagers who are promiscuous are going to get killed. Teenagers who are assholes are going to get killed. Like teenagers are just going to get killed because of the choices they make in terms of the morality.
I'm gonna cut you off here, Kevin. I strongly disagree. I think that is in the slasher subgenre specifically, but I don't agree with that assessment. I think that in a lot of slasher movies, the ones that I've seen as of late, it's you're killing people. You're saving the virginal, innocent white girl. We're gonna make this about race.
Politics, doing it, race things.
You save the virginal, unexperienced. I don't know what the opposite of street smart. She doesn't have any street smarts. White girl to the end, because I feel like that is who society thinks is the weakest. in society, right? That's who we take.
Yeah.
And weakest not in the sense of dumbest or whatever, just weakest in the sense of in physical peril, that is a person you cannot count on. And I think what most to be fair, most slasher movies I think just copy, what the slasher formula is. But I do think that in the seminal ones, what you're doing is you're getting rid of the people with power. You're getting rid of the girl who does drugs, the promiscuous girl. You're getting rid of the black guy because he's a black guy, and like a killer versus someone like a black guy. I think culturally we do look at that in a certain lens of that guy can take care of himself. But if he's killed, and as he gets killed, and we're leaving down at the bottom, you know what I mean? It makes it scarier and scarier, right? Like eventually we're gonna get down to this girl, and she's the last one. So I do think it's more of a product of how do you tonally make the movie scary more than punishing people specifically. But I don't think I will concede that there are movies that do that. I just don't think that any of the seminal ones really subscribe to that kind of theory. Not to say fuck you, Matt, but
I think it's even simpler. It's just, like you said earlier, it appeals to the audience that they're going for. They want to show them, somebody of their age in peril, and nudity is a big part of these movies, and people want to see teenagers naked. That sells tickets.
Sweet tits.
No offense to About Schmidt, but people don't want to see old people naked generally.
In our quest not to be actionable in this movie, we are talking about people who are over the age of 18. Legal consent is required.
Yes.
Our 2257s are filed and available upon request. Thank you. Also, if you get that reference out there, shout me out, because I want to see who gets that reference.
Yep.
We'll explain to you later. We're so derailed as it is. So. I had this thing again. Okay, let's just do the rapid fire. Rapid fire is horror subgenre. Rapid fire. This is my favorite thing in the world. Is horror subgenres. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna give you a horror subgenre. If you need me to give you a title, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
And you just give me a yes or a no. You could also give me a no opinion, I guess, if you're a pussy.
Which I will be doing.
Okay. So there's a lot. Horror genres may overlap, and I will not clarify. Slasher.
Yes.
Are we saying
yes or no?
Or are we picking a movie that's a slasher?
No, you're saying yes or no, but if you need an example, because this is going to get obscure, so I'll give you an example if you don't know it.
Okay.
So,
Slasher,
I'll say yes.
No.
Kaiju.
No. You know what? I got some mixed up. Yes, on Kaiju.
It's just
Yes, I was thinking of something else.
Japanese monster movies?
Yeah, Godzilla would
Yeah,
be the example.
that's-
Gigantic monster movie.
I'd say no.
Yes. Gothic horror.
Yes.
If you need me to give some, should I just give my example?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just start over. Slasher, Friday the 13th. Yes, no, yes. Kaiju, Godzilla. Yes, no, yes. Gothic horror, Dracula.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Zombie, Virus. 28 Days Later.
Yes.
No.
But getting overplayed, and I'm getting tired.
Yes, I'm gonna give it a soft yes as well. Soft yes.
Soft yes.
Viruses, come on. Magical zombies, aka white zombie.
No.
Magical zombies. That makes me laugh.
That's a no for me.
No.
I'm gonna say yes, and I also want to further say that I think we need to, in a Game of Thrones world, we need to explore magical zombies more. Give me a necromancer, give me some fucking zombies. He controls the zombies with his magical staff.
Are those zombies?
Make it happen, Hollywood. Make it happen.
Are those zombies though, or are those just monsters?
What?
Like knocked magical things. Like
I'm talking about like you use magic to reanimate a corpse.
oh, I see. Okay.
To clarify, zombie mystery, aka Night of the Living Dead.
Yes.
I mean, I like that movie, so yes.
Yes. Vampire. I'm not gonna give an example. Dracula. I
Just no, because the market is overly saturated.
Well, okay.
And the genre, I don't know. Nobody's done anything really interesting with it in some time. So no.
No.
I'm gonna say yes. I could add teen vampire here. I'm not gonna do that. But if it was teen vampire, we'd all say no. So I'm gonna add it.
I hope that's a resounding no.
I'm gonna add it. Teen vampire, Twilight, no, right?
Correct.
No, and no.
Werewolf, aka American Werewolf in London.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Someday I want a single take werewolf transformation.
You get
in
it.
a movie.
You'll get it, buddy.
I'm hoping.
You'll get it. The werewolf genre is also looked down upon, but there's some really... Howling is a really good movie.
There's a lot of good stuff in that.
Splatter film.
Yes.
No.
I'm gonna say yes.
I like a good gore.
Supernatural horror, like Sinister or Poltergeist.
No.
Yeah, I like the Poltergeist. So
Yes. I'm gonna say yes as well. Home Invasion. You're next.
No.
Your Next was good, but overall, I'm not a fan of the Home Invasion, so no.
I'm gonna say yes. Action horror, aka The Purge.
No.
But also, don't take my example as to be gospel truth.
I know.
You know, it's just an example.
I mean, like, Straw Dogs is a great invasion horror movie, but overall, I think it's not that good a genre.
okay, so action horror.
No.
No.
Yes. Torture.
No.
No.
Yes. Ultra violence. Itchy the Killer would be the example.
No.
No.
Yes. Extreme violence. A Serbian film would be the example.
No.
No.
I've never seen a Serbian film, but I do want to, so that makes me a yes.
Pervert.
How dare you? What I'm going to call interior madness, aka psycho. Madness from within, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes. Exterior madness, which is madness from without, which is like the Wicker Man.
Bees.
And not the Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
Wicker Man was good. Yes.
It's not based on the...
I know, but
I'm going to say yes. Alien movie, which the example would be Predator.
just go with Alien. It's fine. Yes.
Yes. I'm for a good alien movie. Yes.
Yep, me
Alien
too.
horror.
Demons, Night of the Demons.
No.
No.
Like, overplayed.
Love me some demons. Love me some of that Satan shit. Possession, like The Exorcist.
Yes.
No.
I'm gonna say yes. Body horror, anything by Cronenberg.
Yes.
I like Cronenberg. Sure. Yeah.
I'm gonna say yes. Romantic horror, like Warm Bodies.
No.
No.
I really like Warm Bodies, and I think that there's a good future in romantic horror. I'm gonna say yes.
Matthew McConaughey, Kate Hudson.
Dude, we're in the reconnaissance, and you could either get in or you can get out.
I hate how you use that word.
I love it. Haunted house movie. Amityville Horror is an example.
No.
No.
I'm gonna say yes. Erotic horror, Hellraiser, or necromantic.
Erotic.
I'll roll with you. I'm gonna go with a yes on
No.
that.
Yes.
I think it plays some.
Found footage.
No.
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 I'm gonna say yes because I do find those movies to be fucking scary. Like that gimmick does get me, but I don't. On the whole, I don't like it. But I mean, yeah, I'm gonna say yes.
You always fall when they pan away and pan
yeah,
back. And the thing's not there. And then it jumps out.
Yeah, that does get me.
You're predictable.
Listen, that's true. Found footage, Ghost Story, The Conjuring.
No.
No.
I'm gonna say yes. Japanese Ghost Story, The Ring.
No.
No.
Yes. Korean Ghost Story, Whispering Corridors.
Pass.
Is there a Chinese horror one coming next? Or?
Listen, if you answer this question, I'll let you know.
No.
I'm gonna say yes. Korean Ghost Story remake,
Jesus.
like The Ring.
How many goddamn subgenres are there? Like,
Not just Korean Ghost Story remake.
American Korean Ghost Story remake.
That's a no for me because I have no experience.
no.
I never saw The Ring, so I'm gonna say yes because I should have seen that movie. The Ring was Japanese, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I never saw the Grudge remake, so I should see that too.
Okay.
So, you can imagine what's next is the American Japanese horror Ghost Story remake.
I will say no.
Kevin?
That's a no.
I also skipped this thing. I was very mad at remakes in the late 2000s when that was going on. So I'm going to say yes because I missed it.
Well, you count yourself among the blessed.
Comedy horror. Evil Dead 2 would be my example.
Yes.
Eh,
I'm going to say yes. Cannibal movie. Cannibal Holocaust.
no.
Undecided.
I'm going to say...
I haven't seen enough cannibal movies.
I'm going to say yes. Lo-fi horror. Like They Live.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
They Live you would call lo-fi horror?
The guy puts on glasses and then the world turns black and white. It's very simple.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
they got...
Oh,
They had a good production.
okay, you're right. I'll change that to the Changeling.
They Live is a fantastic movie.
Put on the glasses.
Monster movie like Jaws.
Yes.
Monster movie? Really?
It's a gigantic monster that attacks a
Yeah,
coastline.
monster. I guess that's okay. I think it's more of like enhanced by some sort of radiation or gamma bursts
Listen,
that
homie,
create giant squids.
Listen, homie, when
This
you
is just a shark,
when
man.
you
It's just a
make
shark doing
when
a shark
you make
things.
your sub-genre list, you can do that too.
Jaws is just a shark being
Also,
a shark.
If you if you keep arguing this, we're never gonna get through this list.
If you said Jaws 4,
Jaws-
that would be a monster movie because that thing had a mind of its own.
So now
And
that
it's
we're
smart.
now that we've debated this,
no, I'm just saying,
monster movie, Jaws 4,
no.
creature feature like
Yeah.
Gremlins.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I'm a sucker for a good monster or creature created with prosthetics.
Okay. Gallo.
No.
I'm gonna say yes because I've never found one that I really like, and I feel like that can't be right. There has to be one good one out
If
there.
they could live up to their titles, then
Bro,
yes.
tell me about it.
Then those movies would be unstoppable.
Witches, Black Sunday.
No.
I can say yes.
I'm gonna say yes as well.
Which movie is that?
I feel like they're due. They're due. That's
Are
why.
they next in the cycle, is what you're
Yeah,
saying? The witches?
psychological.
They're already
horror.
coming back. There's a lot of witch shows.
A lot of witch TV shows.
A lot of
Indeed.
witch TV shows. Everyone likes the witches.
Salem. Witches of
Salem-
East End.
And then there
Both
Witches of
fuck
East End.
shows.
My cousin loved The Craft back in the day.
I remember The Craft.
Yeah, my cousin
That dude.
all about
People really like The Craft. That really connected with some people.
it. Oh, yeah.
Like every
Lies of Feathers.
And then
Every-
later-
every girl in high school.
Yeah. And then later it was like the Ginger Snaps movies. And I don't know. And then now it's like Twilight or some shit.
yeah.
Or maybe It Follows. We'll get to that in a minute. We gotta wrap this up, dudes.
We're pushing.
I thought this would be faster. You guys
We're only 20 deep in this.
Matt's not gonna last this thing. He's trying to stall it out like a fucking
You have
boxer.
like 50 subgenres of horror. It's like are there really that many?
I like horror,
This
In
is
case you didn't know.
and I know some shit about it. Kind of. Psychological horror.
Yes.
yes.
I'm gonna say yes as well. Revenge. I Spit on Your Grave, or I Saw the Devil. A lot of I see things.
People saying things, getting revenge.
I'm gonna go ahead and say yes.
No.
Yes.
Sci-fi horror.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And also, Event Horizon was the example there. Nature horror, The Birds, or Jaws.
Yes.
Yes.
Fucking.
Or The Edge.
Or Jaws 2. I'll take Jaws 2.
Okay, so people playing at home, write in and tell me what you think. I think I won that one.
I think you had a resounding yes on all of them.
Okay, so then last yes or no. Kissing on the first date.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, why not, right? We're modern people.
Yeah.
Okay.
If the chemistry's there,
The real question is, should we make a horror podcast based
But
on
don't
this
push
list?
it. We don't want to condone, unwanted advances here.
let
Yeah.
it- let
Consensual kissing.
Consensual
That's
kissing.
implied, though. That's implied, right?
If it feels like if she pulls away, then it's like, all right, time to go home.
Let it go.
Let it happen naturally.
Yeah.
Don't
we
force it.
condone consent here
Yeah.
Yes.
on the Jibber Jabber.
Yes, we do.
Speaking of consent, should we make a horror podcast based on this badass list I made here? God damn.
That's a no.
Clark No?
veto.
I'm gonna say yes. And if Clark Wolf, who is writes for the Nerdist, is listening, hit me up, girl. Let's do this shit.
It's a girl? What?
Clark Wolf. It's a girl.
Oh, okay. Well,
Clark with the E, Wolf with the E, motherfucker.
like Tom Wolf.
That sounds like sounds like a wolf who's an accountant.
Or Virginia Woolf.
Clark Wolf.
I guess it's a more appropriate analogy. Not really. Though.
I think you guys are getting away from the fact that this
No,
is a
Wolf
badass
is
podcast.
with 2 O's
All
instead
right.
of 1 O.
None of this is gonna make the final edit. Let's just keep moving on.
Slice it out.
Okay.
Okay, so fucking assholes. Okay, so I can't even remember what movie we're doing.
We did kissing on the first date.
No, we're done with it. That's it. That's it for the list.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna do. We're doing.
It follows.
It Follows. In theaters now.
All right, here we go.
Here we go. We're back.
Finally back.
It's been a while.
Been a hot minute since we recorded that.
So
It
for-
Follows intro.
For the listener, the difference between usually the difference between the first half and the second half, on average, is about a week. Sometimes we record it all in one day. This time it was recorded maybe like 4 or 5 months ago.
Yep.
So that's just happened. That's just how it happens to be. Kev, I will say that we've watched this movie now twice for this podcast. We tried to watch it in the theater and do an episode that didn't work out. So then we waited for the home video release, home entertainment release. So I know that we watched it together on Saturday, March 21st at the ArcLight in
Wow, you
Hollywood.
got it pinpointed.
I have a little book filled with all the movies I watch and when I watch them.
Okay.
And where I watch
and
them.
ArcLight saves your movie visits too.
Does it?
Yeah, if you go on your profile page, it like lists out all of your visits.
Yeah, I'm not sure which theater we saw it in. Don't have that information handy.
Theater
But
12.
upstairs?
Yeah, probably.
Or is that downstairs? So that's that. I also watched it on my Blu-ray copy on 2 nights. So today's Saturday. Watched it on Thursday. Finished it on Friday. Watched maybe like another third of the movie on 1.5 speed with the commentary on. So I got a little taste of the commentary. Was not able. I wanted to watch it twice. Once on the Blu-ray, and then once again with the commentary on. The commentary is not by the film director; it's by a bunch of critics.
Yeah, five critics, and then somebody from Nerdist sort of moderating.
Right, it's weird. He's doing like call-ins. But while the movie's playing live, it's very bizarre.
Really?
He's calling his friends.
Oh,
It's very strange. Yeah, it's very strange.
Now I have to listen to it.
So what about you? Would you watch it obviously with me?
Yep, yeah, saw it in theaters. Also picked up Blu-ray at Amoeba Records and watched it last night.
All right.
You know, after stewing on it and reading about it in between us seeing it in the theater and watching it again.
Right.
So
Right.
there's been a lot of talk and chatter online about It Follows.
Indeed.
And I really wanted to go to that screening where the director.
Yeah.
Just it didn't work out.
It wasn't gonna. My girlfriend was going to her book club, which is in fucking Pasadena.
And I totally forgot about it.
Right. So, and if you're not familiar,
I literally looked at Cinefamily's schedule that Saturday, and I was like, I wonder what they're doing. And I was
Oh,
like,
no!
oh no! So,
yeah. If you're for those in LA, the idea of driving to Pasadena, going from Hollywood to Pasadena to Hollywood
on a Friday
night, yeah, it just wouldn't happen.
No.
There's just no way.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's how it happens.
All right. So
maybe next
it's
time.
okay. I mean, it sucks. I don't know. I didn't hear anything from that. I didn't know. The director is supposedly very. He doesn't like getting into the deeper meanings of this
Yeah,
movie.
he's been very vague about
Right.
It Follows.
So we're gonna maybe we'll shout him out on Twitter and be like, listen to this episode, bro, and tell us what you think.
We're definitely gonna shout him out on Twitter. Come on.
And he'll probably not do that, but that's okay. To surmise this movie, I'm gonna give this a shot. All right.
Do it.
So the movie opens with a girl fleeing her house, running from an unknown force. She drives away, goes to a beach, calls her parents, apologizes for being shitty, and then the next morning is discovered brutally murdered. We then meet Jay, who is a young girl who is just starting college, living at home with her sister and her mother.
So this movie takes place in the suburbs of Detroit.
Suburb of Detroit, which on the second viewing, you see some of the 12-mile, 13-mile
12-mile road.
Yeah, which is a Detroit thing. She goes on a movie date with a guy named Hugh. They end up in a car in near an abandoned, like what appears to be a factory of some sort, or some sort of industrial space. They fuck in the car. He hits her with some chloroform. She wakes up tied to a wheelchair. He quickly and succinctly tells her that now that he has had sex with her, an invisible monster will be chasing her. He can see it. She can see it. No one else can see it. It can look like anyone. It will slowly walk towards her. That is its weakness, is that it can only walk towards you no matter where you are. Its strength is that it knows where you are at all times, and it can look like anything it wants to, person-wise. Someone you know, someone you don't know, something disturbing, something normal. That's the quick and dirty of it. And the only way to survive this is to give it to someone else, and it'll go chase after them. But if it gets them, it'll come back to you. It goes back down the line. That's the stakes. And then a nude woman comes in, and that's the creature. Then they run away. Hugh, dumps her, Jay, on her front lawn. It says, good luck.
And he says, don't let it touch you.
Don't let it touch you.
Drives away.
And just drives away like an asshole. They report the incident to the cops. Days later, it comes to her school. She's in college, taking the form of an old lady in a hospital gown.
That's when she really realizes it's real.
Right.
This thing is coming for me, and no one else can help me.
And then later, it comes to her house, and that's when her and her friends decide they need to go try to find Hugh. That's when her friends think it's real. They try to go find Hugh with the help of Greg, who lives across the street. They find a house he was squatting in, abandoned, rigged with cans and bottles on all of the windows and doors that would let you know if anyone ever came in. Inside, they find porno mags and some high school memorabilia. That's how they find out. They go to that school. They find out that Hugh's name is really Jeff. The school gives them their address. They go find Jeff at his house, living with his mama. They have some nice sodas in the backyard while Jeff apologizes for chloroforming her and giving her this monster, but reiterates that there's nothing that they can do except for keep spreading it down the line. They buy some time by going to Greg's beach house on the lake and learning how to shoot a gun.
Greg is a neighbor who lives across the street.
Right. Jay is attacked by the monster, taking the form of her friends. She shoots it in the neck, or in the shoulder or something. It falls over but gets back up. She flees in the car that they drove to get there, but crashes and breaks her arm. In the hospital, she has sex with Greg. It is revealed that Greg does not really believe this, despite seeing unexplainable things like her hair getting pulled with no... Actually, he doesn't see the hair getting pulled, but he sees a door explode because the creature burst through it. Yeah. But it doesn't make sense to him. It finds Greg and kills him while Jay tries to help. Jay then flees in a car, gets undressed on the beach again, and swims out to a boat full of some frat boys. Then she drives home. It does not explain what happens. It does not directly explain what happens in that scene. She's very paranoid. They decide to lure the creature to a swimming pool to kill it with electricity. The plan goes awry immediately, with the creature failing to get into the pool, and instead they plug in. The goal is they're going to lure it in, and they have a bunch of appliances there, and the creature just starts picking up the appliances and throwing it at her head, and she can't get away because she is in a pool. They throw a blanket over the creature, shoot it in the head, and then shoot it in the water as it tries to drag Jay back into the water. The pool filled full of blood. Jay has sex with Paul. Her childhood friend Paul. Paul then drives past some sex workers on the street. Not implication of what happens there, but we do not see anything specific. In the end, the ending shot is Jay and Paul walking hand in hand down the street, holding hands. Someone is following behind them. It follows.
That's a good summary.
Thank you.
That is a top to bottom solid
Thank
summary
you.
if it follows.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate that.
yeah.
Looking out. What do we think, Kev?
This is a really unique, interesting horror film. So
Indeed.
There's a lot of layers to it, and there's still stuff I'm trying to work out. Like what certain things mean, what certain things are hinting at, and what's it all trying to say?
I think there's two things I want to talk about. One is there a difference between the first and second time? And second is I want to go and take a deep dive into some of the meanings and motifs and stuff. But I do want to say that we're going to go deep into this movie. I think this movie just works as a mysterious teen horror movie, monster flick. I think it works as a deeper art house movie. And I think it works on both of those simultaneously. And if one appeals to you over the other, it works that way too, right? I think whatever you want, and I think we are the kind of guys who like the idea of the teen monster, crazy, mystery movie, right? Fun horror movie, and also the art house, artsy. This represents this. This is a motif for that, etc., etc., etc.
And just playing with the genre too,
right?
Playing with a lot of different conventions.
In my favorite kind of movie, it transcends the genre while being part of it.
Yep.
Which is
very tough to pull
off, and when you can do it, it's fucking awesome.
It wins.
So, really, before we get into the deep dive, was the second viewing experience different than the first one in any significant way?
Very much so, for me.
Elaborate. And I will say for me it was well.
When you know the rules about, when you know a bit more about who the characters are and the rules of the monster, the rules of the world, you see all the seeds get planted really early on in a really interesting way. Because when you're first watching it, it's just kind of the standard horror setup. It's they introduce the characters, they reveal the conflict, etc.
The threat, the monster,
exactly.
Whatever.
But when you watch it the second time, you kind of see...
Oh, sorry.
It's alright. When you watch it the second time, you kind of see the seeds get planted really early on that pay off a lot later.
Yes.
So...
And it's kind of one of these houses where you walk in and you're like, there's not that many seeds.
And then you walk in a second time and you're like, this floor is covered in seeds.
Yep.
It is like a fucking bird feeder fell over in here.
And the big one is her dad.
Yes.
So he's really a ghost over this whole thing.
Indeed.
I'm starting to the movie doesn't say anything about her dad, doesn't say anything about her family.
The word father, dad, pop, any male parental anything,
Pappy.
not mentioned ever in this movie. No one ever talked about anyone's dad. They don't even talk about people who have dads. You know what I mean? If they even have dads. You know what I mean? Like, there are no dads present in this movie. Everyone has a mother. Greg across the street has a mom. Jay has a mom. But those are the only two parents we see in the whole movie.
And most of the time, the parents are obscured by the camera, by walls, by
Facing away.
by being out of focus. It's we never see Jay's mom. Like, we never see her face on, full ahead. We see Greg's mom because the monster takes the form of her and she kills him. And by the way, this monster, how does this monster kill you? It fucks you to death.
Right. Which we're going to get into. We're going to take a deep dive on that in a minute.
That's just a crazy way to kill somebody.
It is. It is.
But yeah, it's we see, I think it's Paul's mother. There's one scene when Jay's mom is talking to another mom about this is after Jay has been dropped off by Hugh.
Sexually
Sexually
No,
assaulted.
well,
Not assaulted, but
consensual sex, physically assaulted.
physically
afterward.
assaulted. Yeah, and learns about
Which is they could have made that all one
fine
scene.
line.
They could have made that all one scene. They chose not to, right? He could have been mid coitus. He could have chloroformed her then,
Yep.
but he doesn't.
He makes a conscious decision of like, I'm going to the trunk, I'm getting the chloroform. Anyways, but yeah, there's a shot. Jay's mom is out of focus. It goes to a picture of a young Jay with her, what I presume are her grandparents, because
Right.
it's an older couple. And then, so you gotta wonder, like, maybe was she raised by her grandparents, or was that...
Or is
were
that
they
just
kind of-
innocent? Is that just a family photo?
Was that just family photo? Exactly.
I
And
don't
then-
think it's just a family photo, but I don't know.
And then the big thing is, so we get to the pool scene. Jade says, oh my god, it's here. The monster's here. I believe somebody asked her, what does it look like?
Her sister.
Yeah, her sister asked, what's it look like? Yeah, that's a key point. Her sister.
And she says, I don't want to tell you.
I can't tell you. And we see it first. It's a male. It's a male with a beard.
And he's wearing a undershirt and some like loose boxers and like those the suspender things that keep your socks up.
Yep. Which
And-
we'll get into more about all the different monsters.
Yeah, I got a list. I wrote down every time you see it.
All right.
And then this is also the same form of the creature we saw when the creature was nude on top of her roof.
Okay, it's kind of hard to see in that, but
I
I presume
believe-
the
I'm-
second time I presume I bet that's
Yeah, I believe it is the same.
okay.
Okay.
I'll have to use that zoom in function on the DVD player, and then so they go through, they kill the monster supposedly.
Do you think they kill it, or do you want to save that for later?
We'll talk about that.
The monster
I want to
is-
stick on the dad thread here.
The monster is subdued for now.
Yeah,
we
subdued.
could just say that.
And then we get to a shot in her bedroom, and we've seen this picture before, but now it zooms in on it so we can really see, and it's very obvious that the monster was her dad,
Right.
in this picture. And then that's all we're left over. So yeah, I think when you first watch it, that's kind of the big reveal of like, oh, that thing was being her dad that time. But you really see it more the second time you watch the movie of all, absent fathers, the father really being out of the picture, what has happened with Jay and Jay's family,
Right.
And then there's a really big moment I wrote down that I didn't catch the first time. When Jay is dropped off, they call the cops. All these cops come in. There's a shot inside of Greg's house. Greg and his mom are looking out, and Greg's mom says, "Those people are such a mess."
Right.
Yes.
I noticed that too. I was like, this family has gone through some shit.
It's not the first time a cop car has been in front of their house.
Right. And there's
why
a
else?
huge judgment in that.
There is, big time. And
She's-
you can
she's-
tell that they don't really know much about that family. Those people.
Right.
Not the Jeffersons, not...
Well, I don't know. I think it's that to Greg's mother, that's their defining features, that they're just fucked up.
Yep.
Right? And, it's kind of revealed later that she's not that good of a parent herself. Because they're driving to Greg's beach house and like, do you think your mom's going to care? And he's like, she's not going to notice.
Yep.
So there's an interesting parallel there, but it's interesting that it's like those, and she doesn't say it sympathetically. It's not like those people are so fucked up. Like, oh man, the worst of luck. It's like those fucking people, those fucks are just. Ugh, I
There's always
hate
that
them.
one person in your neighborhood. It's just like, God, those people are just messed up.
Yeah.
Don't mow their lawn. There's always a cop car out front.
Yeah.
Goddamn, those people are messed up.
So again, there's no answers here, right?
Let's see, I have one more. Hold on. Now, another big thing I noticed in keeping with this
Please.
parental, when she's attacked in her bedroom, all the friends are sleeping over. The monster comes in.
The first time the monster reveals itself to her at her house.
Exactly. Jay runs to the park. Her friends follow her.
On a bike.
On a bike, yeah. They try to comfort her, and they meant something about, have you told mom yet? And she says, please don't tell mom, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that say, do you think? Like, why won't she even reach out to her mother for help?
Mm-hmm.
Was
Implication the mom didn't believe her before about
mom
something?
didn't believe her? Did
that-
she falsely accuse her dad of sexual assault or some kind of sex act?
I don't think there's any implication that anyone was falsely accused of anything at any point
Sure.
in this movie.
But I mean, I felt that line was very, I think, a key to it.
Well,
where
there's a lot.
very distant from her parents.
True, and there's a lot of things going on. One thing that is very important, I think, to the read of this movie is that these kids are they're just becoming adults, right? They've just graduated from high school. They're still living at home, and they're going to like community college. So
Or like a college prep class, because I feel like it's still summer.
that's fair.
It's still kind of in summer, I think.
That's now that you say that makes sense too. So it's either like
It's like a
like
summer
late-
school class that
or-
she needs to pass to go to college,
or like college classes that started in like late August or
Yeah,
something or mid August. Regardless, they're in that in between step of being adults and kids. You know what I mean? And I think that's something to read from this movie, right? So it could be that she's like, don't tell mom because like we can I want to handle this myself, and like I don't want mom's help. I don't want mom whatever. It could be, if you're reading this like it's just purely a monster movie, it's like, what the fuck is mom gonna do to stop a fucking invisible monster?
Exactly.
She's not gonna believe me. You know what I mean?
But again, just the fact that she won't reach out to her parent, though,
Mm-hmm.
like in any capacity, that to me says a lot. Because like, if I was in that situation, I'd tell mom and dad, like, I'm going through some shit. I don't know what to do. If you can help, great. If not, I'm gonna try and do this. But yeah, to like keep something like this a secret from a parent, I think says a lot.
Right.
about that.
And I mean, I do think that there is that distance from all authority figures, right? She doesn't go to a teacher. She doesn't go to a cop. They're looking to solve this themselves, right? Which feels to me, very teenage, right? Where it's like, we can't trust anyone with this. We can't reach out, they feel isolated in their friendships,
Like,
right?
this is their problem.
Like when she sees the creature for the first time, she goes to her friends at the yogurt, which is a hilarious shot. Where she goes, they're working at a yogurt shop, and then it shows her walking in, and then the hard cut to her like just like, with a big bowl,
Eating yogurt.
a hooked up free bowl. Great stuff.
Gotta get that yogurt hookup, folks.
I mean, it's part of the perks. So I think what we need to talk about first, what we need to talk about first is, what do you think the monster is? And do you want me to read off every time we see the monster
Yeah,
first?
let's do that so that we can start seeing what the patterns are.
Okay, so it starts off with the nude woman while she's tied up in the abandoned factory, right? Nude
Well,
woman.
and then we also see a girl in a yellow. Well, we don't see it, but
Well, yeah,
Hugh/Jeff talks about.
a girl in yellow.
Girl in
That's
yellow.
zero. That's number 0 because at that point we don't even know what he's talking about.
Exactly.
But yes, there's a girl in a yellow dress, but we don't know what she looks like, how old she is, how young she is, etc.
Yep.
So nude woman, old woman in hospital gown at the school, tied up, beaten girl who's pissing herself with her boobs out in the house.
Missing teeth.
Missing teeth, black eyes. Huge dude in narrow hallway
who has something weird going on with his eyes.
Yeah, all the creature always looks like the eyes are blacked out in a weird way.
Yeah.
Girl at high school who just seems to be a normal student, that's a maybe, right? I think that it's clear. On the second viewing, I think it's clear that is one of the creatures.
Because there's this great shot where it's a rotating camera, and it passes by a window, and there's a girl walking towards what's going to be like an administration building. And yeah, it's played into like, we don't really know, is this the thing? Is this whatever? And then there's a shot they get in the car right after that, and that same girl is walking towards them.
Right, which could be a coincidence. It speaks to the paranoia of what's going on.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna count it. Okay, friend with the glasses next at the beach. The glasses friends with the cool compact. Back to the giant at the door in the beach house. Then it's the guy friend, the Peter or Pete or whatever his name is, that she ends up hooking up with at the end. Or Paul. It's Paul. When the
Is it?
Yeah.
When it crawls through?
Yeah.
No.
What do you think it is?
I think it's the neighborhood kid.
Okay. Perhaps
Because he's small.
Well,
he's a little kid.
Yeah, but Paul's a little shit. So
But he's normal size. I
Okay.
think it's the neighborhood kid.
that's fair. We'll just it's one of those, right? We can agree that it's definitely one. The first time I saw it, I thought it was the neighborhood kid. On second viewing, I thought it was Paul. Then it's the sister when Jay runs out the back door and is heading for the thing. Then it looks like her sister.
See, I thought that one kind of looked like the girl from the beginning, though. Or am I wrong?
No, I think it's a sister.
Okay. I mean, they kind of look similar, so it's hard to tell. But on second viewing, I was like, "Is that the girl from the beginning?" But yeah, I didn't take the time to really investigate it.
Then it's Greg going into Greg's house wearing thermal underwear. Then it's Greg's mom raping Greg to death. Then it's Greg again, Greg, who's dead now, again when she's driving away. And you just see him in the rear view. Nude dad on the roof, dad. And then the dad in underwear at the pool. And then may or may not be a dude walking behind them in the end.
Yep.
Okay. What do you think this creature represents?
I think it is. I mean, the running theme whenever it's chasing Jay, it's always they're in their underwear, they're sexually assaulted, they're bloodied, something is going on. You know,
Or, I think in the case of, and maybe I'm stepping on your shit here, but in the case of the really tall dude, it's just a literal large looming threat.
yeah, it can take the form of like what it needs to get where it needs to go. Because it turns into the big dude to tear down the door, turns into a small person to get in the door. So like it can shapeshift that way. What does the monster represent? I think it's really, again, I'm still struggling with, not struggling, still really thinking about it, but the fact that Jay only ever sees sexual assault victims, I think completely tells you she's a sexual assault victim of some kind.
I agree with that. I think there's more there, but I agree with that. I think the thing with the dad, and the fact that she didn't want to tell the sister, and I mean that could just be, I mean you could, if there's no other hints of any kind of sexual assault, it could just be because that's scary because it's dad. Maybe dad's dead, and that's just very sad. I don't know, but because we see a girl tied up, bruised, with no teeth, peeing herself, one sock, boobs out, tied up. I think I already said tied up.
Yep.
And all the other things, bruised friends, this weird shit. I think you can't deny that there's some sort of sexual assault there. Also, the fact that the creature... So, people have said that it's an STD analysis. I don't agree with that.
I think that's a cheap way to look at
Right.
it. So,
I think that while you do get STDs through sex, you also get traumatized through sexual assault. And the thing doesn't have consensual sex with you to kill you. It rapes you to death. And it breaks your bones in the process and stuff. So, and that is a literal sexual assault, right? Raping someone to death is sexual assault. So I think the creature represents death and the fear, the fears of life, right? Like the things that can go wrong. So like as a woman, getting raped, like, and then as a human, dying. And I think that is also personified in every time anyone reads a quote in this movie, be it the glasses friend's girl reading on her little compact thingy, or when the teacher's reading about stuff, it's always about death. When they're playing Go Fish right before Jay gets dropped off, she says, the pain of torture is not the pain of being tortured. It's the knowledge that in 1 hour, in 10 minutes, in half a minute, you will cease to be, and that is the real pain. And then when after Glasses Girl gets shot, which by the way, she gets shot. I kind of thought that was a little bit funny.
Jay's kind of a bad shot.
Yeah.
All right. And so is Paul.
Yeah, Paul. Yeah, not a lot of pistol skills in this group.
No. But they're kids, you know? It's
Yeah,
like,
but they're Detroit kids. When she's in the hospital, she reads again, and she's like, the agony of life is knowing that it'll end. So it's all about this fear. She's always reading about this fear of death. And then I believe the teacher's quote is also about death. I don't remember exactly what was said in that. So I think the creature represents the fear of death and the fear of things it's the anxiety, and I think the fact that they're transitioning into adulthood, it's them realizing their own mortality, and that's I think the theme of the movie.
I think that's an interesting way to do it. So yeah, because I'm an old man these days, so you forget about when you're a teenager, you don't think about
The fact that your life, that everyone dies.
Unless you go through like a life or death experience, you're always kind of that like, I have my whole life in front of me, you know? And he even says that in the movie theater scene. Hugh.
Yes, he does.
They're playing the game of who would you rather be,
and he picks the little kid.
He picks the kid, and he says, "Wouldn't that be cool to have your whole life in front of you?"
Right, because he has just realized that he will die one day, and because like anyone listening to this, me talking, anyone who will ever exists, until we figure out those robot bodies, everyone dies. It is a sad fact of life, but it's kind of like it's sad because we, as those who will die, we feel sorry for ourselves, but if it's happened to everyone, you know what I mean? It just happens to everyone. And so he's realizing that, and there's a literal thread of this with the creature, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then she, right before she gets chloroformed, she talks about, when I was a little girl, I would dream about a hot guy in a car, and we would have total freedom. And then now that I'm an adult, what would we even do with that freedom? So she's realizing that life is pointless, right? Like one day, I wanted this thing and I got it, and then now I don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? So I think there's a nihilism in this movie of we're fighting to stay alive, but it's an inevitable thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's nihilistic because at the end, she chooses to be Paul or be with Paul, even though they know there's this thing out there chasing them. You know, they're trying to go on with their life, basically. Right. They're not letting this define them in a way. So, yeah, I don't know if it's nihilistic. The nihilism says that, nothing is true and everything is bad.
That's true. Actually, that's a good point. I take that back.
But I think maybe that's kind of her arc, is that, she's sort of just listlessly going through life. Now there is a threat. We need to make something out of it.
Right. So. And I feel like the 360 shots play into this paranoia of fear and death and a threat, right? Because it's you're looking in every direction to see, and that's the safest way to be, right? Is constantly scanning. But then the problem with that is that what if you see something, right? If you're constantly doing a 360 and then you finally find a threat, now you got to react to the threat, which is good filmmaking.
The movie does that not just in that 360 shot, in a lot of shots. It's these big wide frames, and the threat could come from anywhere.
Right.
And it plays with the notion. There's the scene where they're sitting out in the backyard. There's a girl coming towards it. Jeff is getting very anxious, and he says, "Do you guys see that girl?" And they'll go, "Yeah."
Yeah. Great, what would you say? Great humor in this movie.
Yeah, it plays with the premise in a lot of different ways. In scary ways, in suspenseful ways, in funny ways. It really it squeezes everything it can out of this premise.
Right. Also, in part of this journey to adulthood thing that I'm touching on here with the fear of death, she says, again, she says the thing in the car where it's when a kid and then whatever, and so it's about that transition, right? And then once the creature's in her house, when she runs away from it, she grabs her kid bike, right? It's a kid's BMX bike, and then the only place she knows to go to is the park. And she gets on a swing set and waits for her friends to come. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's
there's just listlessly swings on it.
Right. And then when they're in trouble, they go to houses a house that they spent their summers at when they're a kid near the lake, and then her mom's house where she still lives at. There's this element of them being adults and having freedom, but really living like kids and living in that same world.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird that's a weird time of life to be going from high school to college too. It's where do you go right now? And do you stay at home? Do you leave? Do you keep your friends? But yeah, you kind of you stick together, and you're just trying to still figure it out. And yeah, this tells that story in a horror centric way, so,
which is my favorite way to be told.
Best way to do it.
Speaking of that again, going back to the STD thing, which it's like when you get an STD, it doesn't make you paranoid. I mean, you have like a sickness, and I'm sure you're upset and you don't trust people. But I think the way these people act, right, where they're paranoid, they're super anxious, they're sad, they're angry, they're upset, they're crying, they don't want to see people, they don't trust people.
There's a good shot when Jay's in the hospital. She doesn't know how long she's been out. She's looking out the door.
Here's the
room,
steps.
and then a nurse walks by, and you hear like gasps really quick. As soon as she sees anything, it could have been anybody.
And I think that behavior lends itself to someone who's a survivor of a sexual assault or an attempted murder, or a violent attack, more than someone who's gotten an STD. You know what I mean? And I think the read on that, you can't, if you're going down the STD analogy thing, that reaction is way too intense for just getting an STD. Unless it's like AIDS or something, I guess. But like, even then, you're just fucked. You know what I mean? You have it. There's nothing to do now. You're infected. You know what I mean? Whereas like if you're being sexually assaulted or physically assaulted in any way, there's this ruined future that you have to live in, right? Where you don't trust people and you don't understand. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I think when this movie first came out, the critics jumped on. Or just, the people talking about it like, oh, it's an AIDS metaphor. It's an STD metaphor. And I think the director, David Robert Mitchell, I think that's kind of a smokescreen. Like,
right.
That's kind of the easy way in. Yeah, it's way more about, that lingering fear and paranoia of sexual assault like we were just talking about. And yeah, I just think to try and say, oh, this is some kind of STD horror movie is just a really easy cop-out that you should not think about. And there's way more going on in the film than just that. That's just way too easy an explanation.
Speaking of other things going on, let's talk about pools.
Lots of pools, lots of water in this film.
And I'm not sure if water is different than pools, and I'm not sure if anything is whatever, right? But there's a lot of sex and violence that happens near pools. The opening girl gets killed at a pool.
She gets killed.
I'm sorry, on the beach. She gets killed on the beach.
Which is a big pool.
Which is a really big pool. Jay is swimming in her above-ground pool while these boys are spying on her. The creature walks through that same pool when it's trying to get her.
When does it do that?
And we don't see that happen. It's presumably after she drives away from Greg's house.
Okay.
Because then when she comes back, the pool's ruined.
Because that's something I noticed, the second time watching it, is I didn't register that pool ruined shot the first time.
Right.
So, I was like, well, when did that happen? And why did that happen? So
she drives to the beach. When they drive to the beach, she gets assaulted on the beach by the creature. She drives back to the beach and takes off her pants and swims to a bunch of frat boys that are hanging out in a boat. Implication that she had sex with one or many of them. Paul says, do you remember the first place that we kissed? And then the next shot is them preparing to go to the pool where they lure the creature in the end. So I think there's something there. There's a Polaroid on her mirror of her making a kissy face in the backyard pool, and then they fight the creature at the pool. So there's a weird sex water pool thing. She the opening shot when we first see her, there's an ant on her arm and she drowns it in the pool.
Yep.
Not really sure if that has any meaning, but that ant didn't look real. It looked like a CG ant.
Yeah.
So
it was meant to be there.
Right.
Obviously, everything in this movie is meant to be there.
So I'm not sure what any of this means, and I don't know if you have the answer to this.
I mean, I just know that's just kind of something you do usually. Like if there's a bug on you and you're in a pool, you kind of just go blip.
Well, and I agree with that, but
or you flick it off and it drowns, or you whatever.
Completely agree with you, but this being a movie and a creation of many individuals,
right. There are no accidents,
and that was a CG shot. That had to be planned, kind of meticulously for it to be a CG shot. So why include that shot in this movie? Like, if there's a shot of them panning on some dirty dishes, right? That could be just like, hey, we got some dirty dishes, let's pan some shots here just in case we need to fill some time. It speaks to the urban malaise. It doesn't necessarily mean things more than atmospherically.
Yeah.
That shot
is held on.
Why?
Why?
I don't know. I'll just say it right now. I don't know.
I need to watch it again and figure out why it is.
Right.
You know, the hopelessness of life, the impending death, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Hard to say. But yeah, we never go back to that motif.
And then, do you understand the water pool motif? Because again, I am smart enough to see something there. I don't know what it means.
I think it's like a symbol of childhood, almost. You get really excited for a pool when you're a kid. And, I was reading an interview on the AV Club with the director, David Robert Mitchell.
Oh, interesting.
And the interviewer was also from Michigan. And he said, you captured Michigan summers perfectly. Like, pool parties, or, hanging out in the pool, kind of just being lazy. Nice summer nights where you can sit outside all night.
Hot summer nights.
Hot summer nights. And I think a pool is just a symbol of, like, childhood innocence, in a way. Because, like, the above-ground pool, if you're an adult swimming in an above-ground pool, you're a redneck. I will accept your hate mail. And then there's the pool, which is obviously in a gym, which implies like school or swimming lessons. I think it's just like a symbol of like summer childhood that what we can presume for Jay has been taken away.
Right.
In some way, shape, or form. And, there's that shot of the pool is ruined, like it's destroyed, like, this is going to sound a little pretentious, but that's like her childhood being destroyed.
I don't know. I don't know if it is. I mean, I think this is...
That just seems very, like, snotty film school thing to say.
Listen,
like,
homie.
The pool represents the Crimean War,
Yeah, well, I mean, but I'm saying, to create something, things have to have meanings, or else you end up with Battleship. So, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, so...
Coming up on the Jibber Jabber.
Which I actually... Spoiler, I'm actually not that negative on Battleship. But you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, people argue for this anti-intellectualism when it comes to everything, which to me bothers me to no end. But it's just like, as people who have tried to create things and who have created things, you can't create things without the world influencing you, without it meaning something. Because it can't just be the plot. There has to be something that motivates you to tell that story, right? So I don't think that all of this water, all of these beaches, all of these pools, maybe it's just something as simple as like, that's part of a childhood in Michigan, and that's just what it is. That's just a visual motif, right? And the creature is threatening her home, so it invaded her home, it broke her pool. Maybe it's as simple as that, right? But that speaks to her childhood being. No matter what you think about this movie, this creature is ruining this girl's childhood and putting a very black mark on her adulthood. You know what I mean? Like, that is just there. No matter what you take from this movie, if you just think this movie is just about a monster that attacks a girl because she had sex with this dude, he is an asshole and gave her this disease that is this monster, that's present no matter what. You know what I mean? So I don't think that that's pretentious. I think that if you don't think that that's happening, then we're not watching the same movie.
Exactly. I mean, there's definitely obvious choices. I just didn't want to come off as like snotty. Is all.
Well,
so,
I'm not afraid.
But yeah, I think that to me is the best thing I can pull from all this pool imagery. Because as an adult, you just don't get as a place has a pool. Okay, cool. But I'll stay at a hotel if it doesn't have a pool if it saves me $50. But as a kid, pools are like, pool. We get to go to the pool.
Right.
It's the big thing.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's what I can pull from that.
Before I want to talk about fear and the scariness of this movie and it being a horror movie. But first, I want to just touch really quick because I think we could get through this with relative ease. There's a real timeline ambiguity in this movie, right? Where people dress, like the 90s and the 80s, and the cars are from like the 70s, and there's no phones. It exists in this.
There's no cell phones.
Right, but there is an e-reader but it's like it's more advanced than what we have now because it's in this clamshell, and we don't have that level of like interest. Like, maybe this girl made it herself.
All the TVs are old.
All the TVs are old.
All the programs are in black and white.
Right, they're all watching classic monster movies. There's no reference to anything now, right?
All of the sodas they drink, the brand is sludge soda. So everything is created. Basically.
Right.
Like, there's no There's no Lay's potato chips. There's no BMW. There's
nothing to hold on to that's like
exactly. You
now.
can't say, okay, this
Which is in stark contrast to Starry Eyes, the first movie we watched, which is very of now, right?
Yeah.
They're talking about
Twitter.
Instagram and Twitter and things. It becomes a time capsule to 2015.
Yes.
Which I think is fine, but this movie doesn't do that. Some of my coworkers who have watched this movie didn't like that. I think because they wanted to be ahead of the movie, and I think that move moves you one step back because you don't know where we are. You know, and late in the movie they say, "Hey, we're in Detroit, BT Dub," but what do you make of this choice?
Again, I think it's just from a filmmaking standpoint, it's a way to preserve your movie. It won't be outdated. I think horror movies tend to get really outdated sometimes.
Well,
like,
they become
very, very like 70s fashion music, very much of the era, like really cheesy synths and like early 80s slasher movies.
well, but those are all the nostalgia for that is back now.
Exactly.
But
Well, I mean,
but I think they
I'm
become
talking cheesy synths, not cool John Carpenter synths.
I see what
Like
you're
in this movie, which we'll talk about.
yeah, but
Like 90s had like 90s soundtracks with
90s outfits.
3 Days Grace and shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they become a time capsule to another era, right? It becomes it's a movie made for, always the assumption is that horror movies are for teen audiences. So then it becomes a time capsule of what's going on now, and then becomes a period piece, essentially, right? Like in the future, people
Yeah.
look back on it, and it's like this sliver of 2015, of 1991, of 1987, of 1976.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this movie avoids that, and it kind of gives it a classical sense where it's anytime. It's like
And it doesn't matter when it takes place.
it takes place from anywhere from like 1970 to 1995.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
With this advanced e-reader.
Thrown in there
Throw
to
it
just
right
fuck
there.
that up. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Exactly.
now you got to push that out to like 2020.
Also, apparently the director said he's gotten numerous emails, tweets, and calls about where can I get one of those e-readers.
Doesn't
And he's
exist. You got to make it.
Like, sorry.
Someone should make one of those. That's cool. I think it's a bold move, and it keeps it by taking the audience out of a literal reality. You remove a lot of criticisms that I think would plague a movie like this. Like, why not use a cell phone? Why not this? It's like that's not even part of the conversation now. It's
Yep.
just like there is no, and it puts you in a state of like there is no help from this creature. You have to just figure it out. The cops can't help you. No one can help you. You know what I mean? It's just on you. And it's like there's nothing to look up. There's no like the invisible monster Google searches. You know what I mean? It's just like you got literature on an e-reader, and you got your fucking wits, and that's all you got. You know what I mean? And I think it sets the stakes in a good way.
Yeah, I think, that's another thing that I really like about this. They never do find some ancient tome or, a Google article or newspapers about other people who went through this and what they did. They only have what's in front of them to try and stop this thing or save themselves before they die.
Right, and I think that feels like when something bad happens to you and you feel like you're the only person in the world that anything bad's ever happened to. I think this movie speaks to that. The feeling that feeling maybe lasts your whole life, maybe lasts 1 second, right? But I feel like this movie, which is 90 minutes or whatever, is that moment in 90 minutes, right? Where you just feel like something bad's happened to you and there's no help. You have to just somehow figure it out.
Yeah, I think something I noticed the second time watching it, in terms of like scares, this movie doesn't have a lot.
Good. Well, I want to transition to the horror element of it,
Alright,
so go ahead.
Yeah, we'll use this then. There's like one jump scare,
The ball against the
the
window,
ball against the window.
which got me, by the way.
It got me the first time. There's, some reveals of the monster, but it's never like a big blast of music to like make you jump out of your seat. So it's not scary in the horror movie traditional sense of like it's always trying to scare you, but the sense of dread I get watching this movie just it weighs me down, and like afterwards I had to watch like a stand-up comedy special.
Nah.
The second time I watched it, and it just gets this sense of like you feel like there's this presence on you, and that there's a lot going on to you, and you start thinking about all the things you're going through, and it weighs you. You just feel like you feel yourself sagging while you watch it.
Oh,
It's
indeed.
just weighing you down.
Indeed. I watched this movie, again, like I said, over 2 nights. Both nights, I started it late, and then it was like, turn off this movie, brush my teeth, go to bed.
Yep.
which was not the best way to go about it. That's for sure. But I think the first time I watched it, I found this movie to be scary as fuck, and I think that dread really penetrated me. The second time watching it, I don't think it was scary, but I am not someone who needs it to be scary every time I see it. I think if it scared me the first time, that's fine. And I was watching this movie in the theater through fucking through my fingers, like covering up my eyes. You know what I mean? It scared the fuck out of me. The second time, the only two scary scenes were the jump scare ball thing, and then when the creature kicks out the door and it's zooming in, and then he pops out and he's like, "Bah!"
Yep.
But I mean, I think the macabre sense of dread is felt. It's just not penetrating the second time, but the themes do weigh on you where you're like, "Fuck," you know what I mean? Like, it's so heavy, which I think it's to the movie's strength. I don't think that
Absolutely.
it needs to be on that level of literal fear every time. I don't think it's a prerequisite to a good horror movie.
No, we go through the same experience Jay is going through. We constantly see her in distress, in tears, having to fight for herself, and yeah, it's like you take that burden as well,
And what I really like about it is that it's really raw. It's like the monster is just a person that doesn't belong in a situation that no one is acknowledging, walking directly at camera, which is, and then also every time we see the creature, it's always, except for in the end when they're in the water, when we see kind of a side shot, the creature, when we see it, is always walking straight to camera.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
No matter how far away it is, or if the camera's zoomed in,
Right.
on a rig, it's that it's walking towards you and staring right at you, and nothing's gonna stop it.
Right. And I like that. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of monsters. Like, I like creature design. We're going to talk about Tremors coming up. Love that fucking worm. Spoilers. But, this is a monster created through, like, cinematography and music and tone and things. And these are just people. And some of the people aren't even that scary. You know what I mean? But the situation makes it scary. When Glasses Girl is walking out from the weeds at the beach, and you're like, hey, what's going on here? And then you see her float by, and you're like, fuck!
Yep.
No!
Nobody's paying attention, and yeah, they're fucked.
Where do you think this movie belongs? Body horror, monster movie, erotic horror?
I think it's
all of the above.
I think it's a monster movie. I don't think it's hard to call it an erotic horror because it's not erotic by any means.
Well,
the sex is not erotic.
And the nudity is not
The
erotic.
nudity is not erotic at all. Sex is always kind of it's not a boogeyman, but it's never talked about in too flattering of a term,
In
It's
this
always
movie?
like, it's
Yeah,
always
yeah.
like, oh yeah, we slept together in high school. Like,
He was all right.
yeah, he was it's nothing. It's not this romanticized act. Basically, it's just something
Yes,
to do.
yes. Until she hooks up with Homeboy at the end there.
Yeah, Paul, because that's a lot of emotion going into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to call it an erotic horror movie. Something like,
I guess it's a sexual horror movie, but it's not erotic.
yeah, it's not erotic at all. So yeah, I just think it's a monster movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In terms of horror, a lot of movies get a bad rep. Horror movies get a bad rep for playing into the genre, right? Like, if you make a haunted house movie, people will hold that against you. It's a haunted house movie. There's thunder and lightning and rain, and there's a ghost, and the door closed on its own. And, I don't agree with that. I like these things, and I feel like, if done well, those elements that we're all familiar with of the genre can tell a unique and original story. This movie does not bother with any of that shit. It's very original in its approach. And it doesn't rely on tropes to do its thing. You know what I mean? It's not relying on monsters bursting out of people. It's not relying on transformations. It's not relying on anything. You know what I mean? So I think I just want to. I don't think there's a question in there. I just want to give this movie credit for being an original horror movie. And I think a lot of people who complain about movies aren't celebrating this for being an original take on something. It's not a ghost story. It's a monster, but it's a monster that we've never seen before. It's an invisible monster that just looks like people.
And
That rapes you to death.
And that's somehow a lot scarier than, a spider or, Jason.
Or a robot that is out of control or something.
Yeah, it's like that just... The fact that nobody knows what to do with it is like, that makes it that much scarier, And it can come from anywhere at any time.
So another criticism that this movie has gotten from some people, I don't think it's not like a level of outrage, is that it's kind of interesting actually. Some people say there's too many rules in this movie, and other people say there's not enough explained. Right? What do you make of this?
I mean, I think it gives you, it puts us in the shoes of the character where we only learn what they learn, you know?
Exactly, because the dude is giving us information, but how does he know this? He says that he hooked up with a girl at a bar, and he thinks he got it from her.
And I always wonder if it was, well, not the girl he hooked up with, but that the girl from the beginning, that he gave it to her at some point. Because then,
And is she
that's when the thing starts coming after him, you know?
Right.
So I was
And
like,
is she the girl from the high school photo?
she might be.
Might
Good
be.
point. You have to give us another watch. Maybe that's why I bought it.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I mean, I didn't get into the commentary when they got to that scene yet, so I want to see if they pick
I
up on
wonder
it.
if that's the same girl. It's a good point.
I mean, so the interesting thing is that there's a lot of like the Slash Film Cast, when they reviewed this, Jeff from the Slash Film Cast really put over the idea that there's rules in this movie and that they have to play by the rules. And I think that there are a global set of rules in this thing, but we are not privy to all of them. I think we have a sliver of them, and some of it is accurate and some of it isn't. You know what I mean? In terms of how the monster works.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think when it gets all explained out to you, that's just kind of a cop-out. It's like, we solved the mystery. It's like, this isn't a mystery or a puzzle box to be solved. This isn't an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Right.
It's,
A guy I work with was saying that. You know, he was like, well, I want to know where the creature comes from and how does it get its powers? And it's like
that doesn't matter. I don't think it matters.
it doesn't. I mean, it matters because it only matters because you like the movie and you're curious, right? But there's no horror in that.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't think that a science fiction movie should do that either, but that's like a science fiction thing, right? Like, you want an explanation for what's going on. The true horror of scary things is not knowing why they're happening. And the satisfaction comes from knowing some things, but not everything. You know? We know how the creature works. It walks towards you. It always knows where you are. It'll rape you to death. We learn these things. But who created it? How does it create it? What happens when someone dies of a different cause? Does it skip them? Is that how you break the curse?
One thing I thought of, what happens if you have a baby? What happens during the sexual act of passing on the curse, you conceive a child? Does the child have the curse?
Questions. Does the thing go after? Are there multiple branching things it can go after? You know, I mean, like there's what I'm
Is
talking
there
about.
more than one?
But-
Do they get assigned to people? Is there? Yeah, it follows bureaucracy.
And then again, we only see this from Jay's point of view. Does Paul see things that he's afraid of that a man would be afraid of? You know, like a lot of men are afraid of like prison rape. Is it? You know, is there things like that he's seeing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the only time we ever see what somebody else would see it as is Greg. Jay can see it because Greg got it from her, presumably passed on to somebody else. The person breaks into his house. You said that. Is that Greg in long underwear?
Yeah.
Breaks into his house. And then it's his mom.
Right.
You know, and that's the only time we ever see what somebody else sees the
Literally.
monster as.
Yeah.
So,
Literally. And I mean, I guess the nude woman, but that's just. I mean, that's like Jay's
But that's
first.
Jay,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
And then we hear that it's a woman in a yellow dress, and we can assume because he's not afraid of her that she's pretty or not menacing looking.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, right? Like, because I feel like if Jay had seen a girl in a yellow dress, she would have like a fucking a lazy eye and a missing tooth and
Yep.
a club foot or something. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I think that would be the one key that this movie could give us is what do other people see when, besides like somebody she knows, like what do other people see? Like if the first girl, if we had seen the thing following her, what would she have seen?
Right.
Then we would have got another piece of the puzzle is how does this monster interpret itself to you, basically.
And it's an interesting thing of like I as a human being, as a fan of this thing, want to know all of that, but I do know that knowing it, there's a strength to not knowing it.
I don't need to know it to be satisfied by this story.
Right.
Basically.
Exactly.
I do, yeah. I'd love to have a tome of like what this thing is and where it comes from and all that, but then the other part of me says let's just keep it a mystery.
What's the director's name?
David Robert Mitchell.
So David Robert Mitchell, if you want to tell us, we can keep a secret, bro. But and speaking of him, he says, "I'm not personally interested in where the it comes from. To me, it's a dream logic in the sense that they're in a nightmare, and when you're in a nightmare, there is no solving a nightmare, even if you try to solve it."
And he talked about this film was inspired by nightmares that he had of something walking slowly towards him and just not being able to stop it. So it does have that nightmare quality of what you're in like sleep paralysis. You can't do anything, and this thing is coming towards you. So.
This is like a complete whatever, but she has like a tattoo of an X on her finger. What's up with that?
I have no idea. It's kind of weird.
It's like
all the kids have tattoos these days.
Yeah, but knuckle tattoos? That's intense.
It's a little prisony.
Well, it's like, what are you, straight edge? Like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like,
True.
I don't think we see her drink any beer in this movie,
No.
but we see other people drink beers.
Do we?
Yeah, the Greg across the street drinks a beer.
That's true.
Her sister's drinking a beer. His sister's smoking a cigarette.
Yeah. But yeah, she doesn't really partake in anything.
She got that straight edge? What's going on here? I want to know.
She's got a tattoo. That's one too many rebel things right there. One more thing I want to talk about.
Sure, lay it on it.
Perusing my notes here.
Do it.
She talks about when she's sitting with Paul during the sleepover and talked about they found all these porno magazines in Alley.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about, I got the sex ed talk right after that. I just found that interesting.
Yes.
Again, sex is a big thing in this movie.
They find the pornos. Sorry, real quick. They find the pornos. They go into Greg's front yard, kid across the street, and they just splay them all out and just start looking at them all. And apparently they were, from what we understand, they're pretty intense mags.
Yeah.
Some Penthouse, more than Playboy.
Yep.
And then the mom freaks out on them, and then everyone gets a sex ed talk.
So,
And then Peter kisses Jay and then kisses the sister, presumably at the pool.
yes. Or Paul, you mean, right?
Paul. Peter. Who's Peter?
I don't know. I just found that another interesting layer of like, when did her sexual awakening come? How does that play into the absent father? I don't know. There's a lot of little puzzle pieces. I'm curious if I watch it again, when I watch it again. What more am I going to find in that? So, I don't know.
Maybe
It's such a through line, like all this sex talk and different levels of sex and where it comes from and how they learned it, how it affects them, all that. So.
the transition from childhood to adulthood, right? And maybe that's the first step.
Yep.
When I was in college, I watched Fight Club every day for a week because I had to do it was like our final project, and you had to
What college kids do.
Well, I had a final project, and I had to do an overall analysis of Fight Club, right? Like, what's the theme of the thing? So some people had like a feminist criticism, some people had like a this, that, or the other. Mine was just generally, right? So I watched it 6 days in a row, and then on the fourth day, I was like, this movie's about balance. It's about how the guy feels like he is too feminine in the beginning, so he creates Tyler in his head, who creates Fight Club, which is in direct contrast to his job and his other life, you know what I mean? And it balances him. And then Fight Club goes too far and becomes Project Mayhem, and that's too male, it's too destructive, right? Because he equates IKEA and blankets and stuff with women. He talks about how generational men raised by his woman that's too womanly, and then Fight Club wants to destroy, institutions and just destroy the world that's too male. And then through Marla, right, which is again an opposite male and female, he figures this out and he kills Tyler, and Project Mayhem is destroyed, and then he goes back to, and he becomes a balanced person. All the credit card companies fall over because fuck credit card companies, right? So I kind of want to watch this movie like 5 more times and see what just connects, what just fucking, what you figure out, you know what I mean?
And I think it's definitely there. Like, there's a lot, every frame is filled with stuff.
Right.
And there's always something to look at. Lines, line readings can, you hear it one way the first time, it just sounds like a line, just your average line to fill some time. You hear it the second way, it means something different. Like that, like when we were just talking, those people are so messed up line.
Right.
Like the first time you don't really think much about it. The second time it's like, okay, this is not the first time.
Right, because the first time we're like, man, this is fucked up. But then you realize she doesn't know what's happened. All she knows is that the cops are here.
Yep. And that's nothing new at that house. So yeah, definitely need a few more watches of this. I'm curious, what more onion layers are we going to pull
Maybe by episode 100, we'll just watch this movie 5 times for episode 100. You want to get a nitpicks and cool shit?
Let's do it.
Okay, nitpicks. Here we go. I only got one.
Yeah, I might only have. Yeah, I've got one too.
You want to go first? You go
I'll
first.
go first. Is yours the cornfield?
No.
Mine's the cornfield.
No.
I have mixed feelings. The cornfield.
they're escaping from the lake. So she jumps in the Greg's station wagon, puts that motherfucker into drive, speeds off, goes on the highway, almost hits a truck, swerves to avoid the truck, runs into a cornfield.
Goes to a cornfield. So when she goes in, you kind of get the sense of like, oh fuck, that's gonna be the worst place in the world to try and run away from this monster because you can never see it coming. And then it cuts her in the hospital, and you're kind of let down immediately. It's like, you think this great set piece is going to come, but then it doesn't. So, and I think, that here's why I have mixed feelings about it.
Go ahead.
I'm okay with it not doing that's kind of a horror, like, a little bit of a cliche of like, let's put it in the worst possible
You
situation.
escape just to fuck it up, and then now you're in a worse situation than if you had stayed.
Exactly. And it's kind of arbitrary, and I don't think a scene where she's being pursued in a cornfield would fit in with this movie. But don't put a cornfield there. You know, it's like don't let the possibility be there, and then kind of just take it away immediately. That's really my only thing where I was like, you get a weird emotional mix with that.
I can see what you're saying. I don't really. I mean, I guess nitpicks isn't for me to defend, but I would just say, because I only have so few, I'm going to defend it and say, I think the movie's agenda is different than conventional horror themes.
Oh, yeah.
So we both come to this, expecting the haunted house and the fucking mad scientist and all this shit. And in this scene where logically it would lead up to that, logically in a horror scenario, then it denies you it, and you're like, wow, what's going on? You know? So, but I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying.
M. Night Shyamalan would eat that cake.
Oh, he would eat that cake
and another piece of cake.
Yeah, he would.
So but I think that just, and I was watching it with my girlfriend's brother, and he felt the same thing. It was the first time watching it. And he was like, "Oh no, a cornfield!" And then it cuts her in the hospital, and he went, "Oh."
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
for sure.
But yeah,
Did Christy watch it with you or no?
she hasn't watched it yet. She's no horror aficionado.
Yeah. Same with my girlfriend. There's no way she would watch this movie. There's just no fucking way. The first musical I showed her I showed her the music, and she was playing on my iPhone. She was like, "Ooh."
Yep.
Like how like when you turn on a vacuum and how a cat gets. She's like, I don't want to be around this at all. My nitpick is, who wears fucking baggy, like running looking shorts underneath your dress when you go on a date with a guy?
Yeah, true.
What is? I mean, I don't know. Listen, there could be a million reasons to justify production wise why they did that. Small budget movie, something going on with, who knows, right? I don't want to. I'm not bent out of shape about it, but it's just like, when you go on a date with when you're a dude and you go on a date with a hot girl, and you're on a girl go date with a hot guy, or if you're a girl going on a date with a girl, guy with a guy, you're not wearing your Bobo underwear, homie. You're not wearing it. That's not gonna happen.
If you think it's the night, you put on the good.
You put on the good stuff, homie. The stuff that you like but never wear, just in case of situations like this.
The SpongeBob boxers with the loose waistband.
Yeah.
Those are for Saturday nights alone.
Yeah, exactly. The Batman, the neon orange ones with the fucking where the elastic and the material are separating. Nah, that's not date night. Not your first date. That date 100.
Oh, exactly.
All right.
That's 50 years of marriage.
And we're gonna have to go into some cool shit right now. No timer, because I'm not being limited by time. Go ahead.
I like the shot when she's tied to the chair.
And the camera
it looks like a static shot, but then you realize it's a rig, and
He moves it.
I like it in movies when they do that.
Yeah.
When they kind of hide the technique they're doing,
Right.
But then expose it in a emotionally true way.
Mm-hmm.
So
This is gonna sound crass, but the nudity in this movie is used well, right? And like we were saying, it's like
it's not erotic.
You might wonder, like, why? Other than the actors don't want to get naked, but every time people have sex or whatever, it's all very covered up and not lascivious and not overly sexualized and overly gazed upon. And then the nudity is tied to fear, right? It's like, to be naked in this movie is to be vulnerable. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting thing going on there.
Yeah. And then whenever the monster's naked, you're not like, oh, this sexy lady's coming for me. It's this scary naked lady's coming
Right.
for
And
me.
it speaks to the fear of intimacy, of sex, of all these things.
Yeah.
Girl in the opening runs in heels. Jurassic World!
It can be done.
It can be done, folks.
You people criticizing it, God damn it.
If you gotta run, listen. If a
They
T-Rex,
already made that episode 9 joke when Colin Trevorrow got announced. Already made that. Oh,
Leia runs in heels.
Can you fly an X-wing in heels? It's
Yep.
like, fuck you. Who cares?
Listen, if a T-Rex or an invisible monster is chasing you and you're wearing heels, you're gonna fucking figure it out.
Yeah,
That's all I know.
The cinematography and the color in this movie, fantastic.
The color in this movie is just fucking...
Lots of blue and yellow, but with like shades of red.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
sharp. Very sharp looking.
exactly. Yeah, there's every shot is just very clear and it's well shot, well edited. I say that a lot on this podcast. That's what makes a good movie, or part of what makes a good movie.
And
it
I
looks
feel-
like they know exactly what they're doing.
And then like it's kind of interesting. Like on a clear day, it's very bright and vibrant. And then there's lots of like cloudy days, you know, where it's like it feels very overcast, very very moody.
Yeah.
With the light.
I mean, that's kind of what what Midwest summers are like. It can be really nice and sunny 1 minute, and then like a torrential downpour comes down the next minute.
Right.
So.
Unknown time period like that. Follow up. Broken TV. I use as a stand for a working TV. Love it. And I love how the house is. Sometimes you see the house is kind of shitty and old and with dirty dishes, but it's not like super bad. It's not like
It's
a
not
gross
dump.
house. It's not a dump. But I just love the idea that a broken TV is a stand for a working TV.
Yep. The jump scare when they're in the junk house by 8 Mile Road when they're looking for Hughes, like they track down you said it was.
Yeah, and then the wall falls out.
The wall falls down, and then Jay screams. Kelly, her sister, is kind of just like, damn, the wall broke, and then they just kind of walk off.
Yeah. I love that very natural reaction. Like, not our house.
Exactly.
Interior car shots are great. Like they do that shot over and over and over again, where it just the camera's in the car, watching them drive with some music, and they do that shot like 4 or 5 times. Works every time.
Speaking of the music unique and original, but still terrifying in a really interesting way.
I mean, I don't know how this movie would have worked without the music. Like, there's a world where there's a conventional score on this movie, and this movie sucks.
Yep. Oh yeah, no question. They talk about on the Blu-ray. There's an interview
With Disasterpiece.
and he talks about when he first saw it. It had a temp score. It had a lot of John Carpenter, a lot of old horror music, but they knew they didn't want to do that. You know, so and he wrote the music for the video game Fez. I don't know if you ever heard of that game.
Is it the one? It's like a platformer, right?
Yeah, it's like a 2D/3D platform. Like the world, you change the perspective of the world in a 3-dimensional way, but you move through it in a 2-dimensional way. It's a unique game. It's fun. But yeah, he did the music for that, and there's definitely some influences there of like there's 8-bit kind of synth runs. You know, obviously lots of keyboards, but used in a really interesting way. And you know, the scene when they get attacked on the beach. That score is bonkers out of control. It's like, but it doesn't sound like shit like I just did. So,
Yeah, there's a dissonance when the monster is there while still being musical.
Yeah.
Which is very hard to do, I think.
and yeah, it's really interesting percussion. It's like synthy percussion, but it's still powerful and menacing. It's just really unique score. Just great stuff.
Opening shots, in the opening shots of the movie, when they're on the date, there's lots of shots of nothing. Like, they'll just zoom in on, like, nothing. And the implication, I think, is that the creature is moving in.
There's one shot when they're in the diner.
Right, and they
Yeah,
zoom in the window.
There's like we see some feet. Is he walking towards us? Is they not walking towards us? We can't really tell. So
Like, they really capture suburban malaise of just being bored in the suburbs. There's nothing to do. It sucks here. Like, even when they're waiting for the monster to come in the end, they're just bored in this pool house, you know, and it just sucks, you know? It's like, I feel like there's a lot of waiting around in this movie, but it never feels tedious.
Yeah.
They sell you on how tedious this must be, but you're always riveted, which I think is
very
super
hard to pull off.
fucking, and it's great, you know what I mean? Because it took me, I've never been stalked by a monster that's gonna rape me, but I did grow up in the suburbs, and I feel like there's lots of times where you're just like, I hate it here. It's so fucking boring, you know?
Yeah. You sit around and you don't even talk with your friends. You know, you kind of just sit there and sit in malaise.
My last cool thing, and there are so many more, but the last thing I'll mention here is that the plan to kill the monster fails immediately. And I love that. It comes in, it doesn't get in the pool right away, and it just picks up a TV and throws it right at her head. And it's like, oh, shit.
And the director even talked about that in that same interview with the AV Club. He's like, it's a Scooby-Doo plan, you know? He's like, and that's the point. It's like, they're teenagers. Like, they don't have any money. They can't build something to, like, kill this monster, you know? They only have the resources they have. So that's the best plan they can come up with because they're kids, you know? They're just inexperienced kids.
Right.
Yeah, it is kind of a Scooby-Doo plan, and yeah, it does. Yeah, the shock of it, like, failing immediately is great. It changes the whole dynamic of that scene of how they have to work, basically. Right. So,
in terms of crazy fan theories, I feel like our take on this movie is the crazy fan theory,
exactly.
you know? So
I think it is open to a few different interpretations, not, like, completely open, because I think those movies are kind of directionless. But I think everybody can kind of take their own thing from it. So it's really interesting, while still telling a coherent story.
So the Weinstein Company, the guys who run Radius or whatever, which I believe actually they've quit recently, but when back in the day, they were talking about they want to do a sequel called Follow It, where they explore the origins of the creature. Do you want to see that movie? A. And B, what's your sequel pitch?
No, I don't want to see that movie.
Thank you.
I think that's just a lame concept, I think. What are they going to do? Like, how are they going to follow it? You know, follow it. So
I think they want to see they want to go back down the line and see where it comes from.
So kind of just go find each person, but then everybody's dead, though.
Or they're not, or they pass it on.
All right. I don't buy it. I don't want to see that movie.
Right.
In terms of a sequel idea, do you have one? Because I don't.
No, I don't
want to see a sequel to this.
Yeah, I think I don't want to see a sequel to this either. I think you can do an interesting one with, like, what happened. It depends. The thing is that you do a sequel, you're going to have to play the hand of two things. One, that this movie isn't really about anything and you just kind of take the lore and try to sting a sequel onto it. Or two, you have to commit to what this movie is actually about, right? Is the creature the realization of death? Is the creature the threat of rape? Is the creature just a creature, right? And then you have to craft something around that. So it's like, how do you be in a relationship if you've had some sort of terrible trauma in your past? And what happens if you have a kid? Does the creature go after the kid or something? You know what I mean? And then you could tell a story based on that, but you really have to commit to what this movie's really about. What are you laughing about?
If they wanted to follow a baby, they could have called it Who's It Following Now? I'll go kill myself now.
No. I'm holding for applause. Woo! All right.
Who's It Following Now? Starring John Travolta.
I don't want if I get a sequel, I don't want it with John Travolta. I'll put that out there, please. Thank you.
Who's It Following Now?
Yeah, I just make other horror movies. It's okay. Not everything needs to be a franchise. I love franchises. I love the Marvel movies. I love franchises. I want to watch all the Friday the 13th until they get bad. So I want to watch 1 and 2. But I don't need this to be a franchise. It's great the way it is. You know, make Radius the Weinstein Company the franchise and make good horror movies like this. Get the artists and let's make some artistic horror movies.
You know, I feel like this could show more indie-minded directors because this wasn't his plan originally, David Robert Mitchell.
Well, he's not going down the horror track. He had an idea for a horror movie and he found investors who said, "Hey, we want to make a horror movie. Do it, you know, let's make a horror movie with you."
Yeah, because his first movie, which I haven't seen, is The Myth of the American Sleepover, which is just kind of a teen drama. And then he said he had another drama that he thought was going to be his next movie, but came up with this horror movie and just made a great horror movie. You know, so, you know, I hope this makes it so that filmmakers don't look down on the genre. You know, where it's like, oh, I have to make a horror movie before I can make anything else. You can make something really unique and really your own, and do it in the horror genre, you know.
Well, I think really cool. the biggest thing of when people talk shit on horror is when they won't even acknowledge that it's horror, right? It's like they'll say this is a thriller, and it's like it's not a fucking thriller. A monster is after people. It rapes you to death. Yeah, it's not thrilling.
That's a horror movie.
It's a horror movie. So that's I think the greatest people. I think it's a two-step process. The problem with the horror genre is that you can make shit really easily, and you can get it out there really easily, and then people want to distance themselves from the genre completely. Could you imagine if someone made a comedy? Will Ferrell made a comedy. He's like, this is not a comedy. This is a funny drama or something. And it's like, no. You're an ice skater who teams up with another male ice skater, and then blah, blah. That's a comedy, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just think that can we give Wes Anderson some fucking money and make him make a horror movie? I would love to see that.
I'd see a Wes Anderson horror movie.
I would love to see a Wes Anderson home invasion horror movie.
That'd be crazy.
Well, you got any other directors? I mean, we didn't prepare for this, but
I said I threw him out in Mission Impossible. I'm going to throw him out again. Damien Chazelle, young filmmaker, really dynamic. See, let's make a horror movie.
And I want Edgar Wright to make a straight horror movie too.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I bet he could.
He made a comedy one, and that was great. Loved it.
Yep. But that still had some good horror in it.
It still did, but I want a horror movie from him.
Could be good. So yeah.
Jason Blum, make it happen.
Yeah, that's all I got.
All right.
Off the top of my head,
That's
that's what I can think of.
So we'll just wrap it
I just
up.
want to see, just young talent getting in there and doing new things with the horror genre, because we have enough tropes that we can start playing with them.
Right.
You know?
So to wrap this up and tying into what we just talked about, what do you make of the ending of this movie? What in your mind, what happens in it? So just to surmise here, they shoot the monster in the head. It falls in the pool. They shoot it in the head again. They look in the pool. The pool's filled full of blood.
Yeah, Jay looks in the pool.
Right.
We presume they can't see it, but when Jay looks into it, it's completely filled with blood. And continues to fill with blood.
Right. So do you think the monster's dead?
I think it is.
You think that killed it?
I think that killed it.
Interesting.
But
Then, okay.
but is a new monster pursuing them? Does it regenerate itself? Like that monster
I
is
see.
dead, but is there another one that takes its place?
Because it's interesting because then they have sex and there's still a chair in front of the door, breaking the door closed.
Yep.
Interesting. And it's like, if it's dead, so maybe that they just don't believe it's dead. And then, I think this is very literal.
they have no confirmation.
Right.
Any way to do it. So
And then-
I'm not getting back in that pool.
And then this is very literal, right? This is very literal, but there's no opening credits to this movie, and then the title comes up at the very end. You see them walking, you see someone behind them, you see them walking again, and then it just says and then like you're walking behind them, and then it says it follows, right? It's
Cuts to black, it follows.
right.
Yeah.
And so that might be very literal in saying, hey, it's still following them, but I kind of feel like this is a movie where nothing can be taken for just, that's just because we wanted a cool shot of the city. You know what I mean?
And then the person at the end that is following them, they're walking, but not quite at the same pace as the monster, but kind of in the same way the monster does. It's like the top in Inception,
Right.
Is that thing gonna fall over? It was gonna fall over? Oh wait, no, it's still standing. It's like it's that level of like just that little bit of uncertainty where you can't say for sure. Oh yeah, that's the monster following him, or that's just some rando who's walking by.
I'm with you, bro. I'm with you.
great stuff.
Are you with me? Do you like this movie and does it work?
Yes and yes.
I think so too, and I think that it's a weird. Listen, if you hate horror movies, I don't think this is gonna win you over because I think it is very intense, especially on the first viewing. But if you love horror movies and if you kind of love artsy movies, it plays to both audiences. But if you're really alienated by horror movies, I don't know if this is the movie for you because I think, especially the first time, it's very scary. It's also because our podcast is just so male centric because it's me and you, and we're both currently male. It'd be interesting to see a woman's take on this, because I think it speaks to a lot of female fears, but we'll never know them.
Yep.
'Cause until episode 100 when we revisit this.
5 times.
Yeah, 5 times.
Yeah, it's a great film. Yeah, if you discount horror, you think it's just a slop genre, give this one a
Yeah,
shot.
if you think horror is just a slop genre, A, fuck you. B,
Watch It Follows.
watch It Follows, and you'll be proven wrong.
There's a lot. It's a dense movie. There's a lot going on in it.
And I think to deny that is ignorant, right? You could say, listen,
You're cutting out a whole swath of movies from your potential thing you consume, and it's like horror movies do really interesting things.
Right. And, I think that says it all right there.
Yeah, I say it all.
Said it all. All right, guys, we're out of here. Go fucking watch It Follows. It's probably on Netflix at this point. Maybe it's not. Buy it. tattoo it onto your face. It's great.
The entire movie. And follow.
Yeah, it follows you, but you can follow us on Twitter, SoundCloud, not Tumblr, Facebook, Speaking Cinema. Hit us up. We put these episodes out.
Check them out.
iTunes. Rate, review, subscribe. Come on. Kev, you're Kev. Me, I'm me. That guy walking towards us very slowly. I don't know who he is. We're out of
He
here.
looks like my dad. Or my uncle.
All right, see you later.
Make it weird. Keep looking over your shoulder.
Good luck sleeping at night. All right, we're out of here.
We're out of here. There's a lot of horror subgenres there, Smoke.
Yeah, there are. And I think a lot of them were kind of the same.
I like that.
I like what Spike's.
Hey, motherfucker. Mm-hmm. Like, it sums it up.
So when did Ronnie Cox just become like the quintessential '80s bad guy?
I don't know.
Which one's Ronnie Cox?
He was in Total Recall and RoboCop, just the main bad guy, like the.
Oh yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about.
All right, episode 5.
Oh, we're recording?
SMJJ. A little bit, not too much. No big deal.
Oh, but the button's on.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah, fine. Sorry, I didn't.
it's all good. Let's go.
This is the preamble.
I'm gonna edit this out.
I imagine. Sounds like everything was terrible in Chappie.
Yeah,
Someday I'll watch it. If it ever comes on HBO,
I think
I'll give
it might be on there.
I'll give it 10 minutes.
All right, you ready?
Ready.
All right. So
Actually, pull my notes out.
please do.
It follows.
All right. So
All right.
5, 4, 3, 2.